If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 141. 290 AC. POV MC. We both took positions and waited for each other to show an opening. Both of us were wielding swords and shields, but Nightfall had a bit of an advantage since it was longer than Red Rain. Authenticate couldn't show his stats directly because he had a Valyrian sword, but now that I'm a level 4 druid, Authenticate should have gotten stronger, and at least I should be able to see his current stats when he attacks. He started with a shield bash, and I let him push me back because I didn't know how strong he was. He used 12 STR and 11 SPD with this bash, but I don't believe it was everything he got. I jumped back with the bash and, at the same time, swung my sword at this leg so he wouldn't make a follow-up attack. Let's test out how fast he was. I stepped back a few more steps, and he tried to close the distance with cautious steps. At that moment, I dashed forward with my top speed. I did a sidestep to the right and made him think I would attack from the right side when he started positioning himself. With the next step, I lunged to the left. He panicked and wasn't expecting this much agility from me. I blocked and bashed his sword with my shield, slipped past him, and, while passing him, reached the back of his knee since there was no plate there, but he pushed me at the last second with his shield. There was chainmail in his joints, and I only managed to land a sallow cut on the back of his left calf. All of this happened in a few seconds, and if I didn't have a Valyrian sword, I wouldn't be able to hurt him. He lashed out to keep me in range, and his speed was still 11. This means he wasn't using his top speed. Even though he had a cut on his leg, he still had 11 SPD, and when Horus pushed me, he used all his strength. He had 13 STR. I could see Horus was starting to act more cautious now. I could almost smell his fear. I might not have developed fully, but being a teenager isn't all bad. People you fight with always underestimate you. He strikes my shield with all his might, and I do the same as a follow-up. Our shields crack open like small kindling. His sword ripped through my armor like it was not there, dispelled my oak's shield on my arm, then stopped by Rovagon Grze, bark armor. I could feel the blunt force on my right arm, it hurt like hell, and the shield spell on my arm weakened. If I didn't have bark armor, he would have cut my arm clean off. I wasn't as strong as him, I could cut his armor and wound his arm, but he could still move his arm. So it wasn't a really deep wound. 2 STR in stat made this much difference. I pulled my guard dagger from my belt and charged at him, and he pulled his dagger but took a step back. It might not be deep, but he got cut 2 times, fear must have started to take root in him. He swung his sword, and I blocked with my guard dagger. Nightfall managed to cut halfway through the dagger guard, but I twisted my wrist and locked Nightfall between the guard and the dagger's blade. Without giving him time, I swung the red rain toward his neck. He did the same and tried to block my sword, but I knew he would do that. That is why this was a feint, and I kicked him in his knee. He fell to one knee and couldn't pull the sword because I still locked it with my dagger. He lost all his lower body strength because he was on one knee. I followed up with another swing to his neck, and he blocked it with his dagger again, but his arm strength was not enough to stop my slash that had all of my weight behind it, and I managed to push Red Rain all the way to his helmet. Red Rain had created a big crevice on his dagger and cut into his helmet, but he was able to stop it before it reached his head. My sword got stuck in his helmet. POV Horus Harlaw. This fight was not going as I expected. This boy was smaller than me. At least, that is what I thought, but he had strength and speed that didn't match his body. He was able to cut my leg and arm one after another. The cut on my leg gave me some discomfort, but I was still able to move my leg. The real problem was the one in my arm, it was a deeper cut. I was still able to use the arm, but it was weak. When I tried to block his last strike, I found myself on my knee. I tried to free my sword, but before I could, he slashed toward my neck again. I tried to block, but my arm was weak, and the blade was coming toward my helmet. It was like everything slowed down at that moment. The red sword cut through my helmet and stopped right at my temple. It was digging through my skin but had lost all its movement. My heart was beating like crazy, I almost died. This monster couldn't be a boy, it was a monster in a child's skin. I couldn't free my sword. If I tried to get up, I would most likely lose my head in the next strike. He used his dagger to lock and pivot the sword away from his body. So, I discarded my sword and tackled him to the ground. He tried to resist, but I was stronger than him when it came to pure strength. I managed to drop him on his back. I crawled on top of him and tried to drive my dagger into his chest. My left arm was in bad shape, so I used both my hand and put all my weight on it, but just as my dagger went past his breastplate, my body froze like a statue. The next thing I knew was a sharp pain in my neck, and everything started to go dark. POVMC. I didn't expect him to go for a tackle, and he managed to drop me on my back, but he made a grave mistake. He let go of his Valyrian sword. All I thought was, I won. He was stronger than me, so he managed to crawl on top of me and tried to stab through my chest. The dagger won't be able to pass my shield, but the force could break a rib, so I cast a Letagon, snare, and stun him. Letagon only lasted for a few seconds, but it was enough time for me to stab my dagger through his neck. His lifeless body fell on top of me. I pushed him aside and got back up. I was still weak at grappling and had to work on that. Then I cast another Kelio Rugiet, Lion's Roar, and shouted. I thank House Harlaw for this Valyrian sword, but I already have one. So I gift this sword to the priest of the old gods, Druid Emrys, for all his help in this war. As for you wet rats, is this the best you can do? I challenge all of you lot. Is anyone brave enough to stand before me and fight? The Stark army behind me banged their weapons against their shields and gave deafening cheers. Meanwhile, on the side of the Harlaws, there was silence. The air was so heavy you could almost touch it. I shouted one more time. Let me give you a handicap, I will face whomever you send with only one hand, and I will not use my Valyrian sword. Chapter 142. 290 AC. POVMC. Even after all that taunting, there wasn't anyone from Harlaw's side. So, I used more heavy insults. Those cunts would always talk about the iron price when it comes to fighting and killing weak villagers, but when a real fight is to be had, they became meek as mice. I have gotten your ancestral sword while paying the iron price, but none of you have the balls to face me and try to take it back. Upon those heavy insults, one more man comes down from the castle. I was looking from the eyes of my familiars, and they were still trying to pull carts and barrels around the gate, trying to create a blockade, but that makeshift blockade would be nothing to a charging Sith. Who would give me their sword? Jory started riding toward me. He gave me his sword and said, Don't you think this much taunting and demoralization is enough? No, if I push them one more time after a win, they will break the second we get past the makeshift blockade they are making behind the gate. How do you know they have a blockade? Jory, what would you do when your gate is breached, but the army is not marching in? And my familiar is behind the gate. That makes sense. The Ironborn finally reached us, and Jory left. It was so obvious he was walking slowly to earn more time. I, Bormund Harlaw, the head of Harridan Hall, accept your challenge. This guy had 12 STR but 10 speed. He charged toward me, but I was so much faster than him. I did a body feint and acted like I was going to charge right at him, but at the last second pivoted around him. Raised my arm high and guided his sword to the right, while deflecting his sword, I stepped in and slugged him with the sword's pommel right on his ear. He was disorientated. I didn't waste any more time and chopped his head off. Is this the best you lot can do? Is this what passes as a man among you cunts? I stabbed the sword to the ground and pulled my dagger. I will fight two of you with this dagger, who will accept my challenge. They were stalling for time, but this was hurting them more. When I shouted this time, I could see some men flinch at the ramparts. I turned to the Stark army and said, Man of the North, what say you against those cunts that don't even dare to face one northern knight with a dagger? All the men started banging their shields and chanting. Kill! 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 I could feel blood in my mouth after all that shouting using the lion's roar, but this was worth it. Without waiting for Harlaws to accept the challenge, it was time. Sith, now use your roar and come get me. She started collecting the mana in her body at her throat and released a thunderous roar. I could see the men on the rampart jumping out of their skin. After I created the spell, she copied me like Poe did and made this debuff spell. Sith didn't have a mana heart, which is why until now, she had two ways to use her mana. One was her stealth movement that erased her presence. The other was her speed and defense boost, but now she learned the lion's roar while copying me. This wasn't exactly a spell, she was reinforcing her throat and vocal cords with mana, so when she released her roar, the sound waves were imbued with mana. This was more like a skill than a spell. After her frightening roar, she ran at me at top speed before they could realize what was happening. We were right before the gate. Two of the scorpions tried to fire at us, but Sith managed to dodge them while zigzagging. While charging in, I started casting all the buffs at her and reinforced her magic armor with an air wall to lessen the collision force. The Northern Army started their charge right after her, but they were still 100 meters away. When we got right in front of the gate, we could see the carts and barrels piled behind the gate, but when Sith crushed into the carts and barrels, she couldn't go all the way through, and I almost fell because of our instant stop. If I didn't have armor magic on me, I would most likely dislocate my arms. The Ironborn started to attack her with spears, but the magic was protecting her, and with every swipe of her giant paws, the carts were falling apart. Because most of the time she was on her hind legs, most of the spears couldn't reach me, and the magic armor protected her, but I could feel it was starting to hurt her. She retreated a bit, then charged with great anger and head-butted the cart. The cart had already broken, and with this hit, it flew around 4 meters and crushed the soldiers behind it. Now we had a point for entry, and at that moment, the army had already caught up with us. Like an endless wave, they started to charge in. Ironborn resisted until we had completely taken over the gate and the land around it. Still, they were demoralized further by Lord Stark's shouting of mercy for those who surrendered. Mine and Sith's onslaught helped a lot too. With the double crescent halberd, I was able to kill a lot, and with every battle, I was becoming more conformable with the weapon. Like the other house on Harlaw Island, we also hosted all the male members of House Harlaw and started sending their slaves to the mainland. After the battle, I came back as the Druid and healed all the wounded, and Lord Stark gave me the Nightfall as a gift. POV Jonaran. I was in the Hands Tower and was drowning in paperwork. One of the servants had brought Lord Royce's message. When I read this message, I couldn't understand Robert's behavior. Why is he attacking the other islands? All he needs to do is take the pike, and the war will be over. The message was sent a week ago. Even if I sent him a message, it wouldn't change anything. In times like this, I wish Ned was the one with the Targaryen blood. When it comes to fighting, Robert always acts like a mountain clan. I turned to the papers on my desk and released a big sigh. The crown was already 4 million in debt. This had accumulated while I was trying to rein in his wanton spending. We owed 2 million to Lannisters, 1 million to Iron Bank, and 1 million to the Faith. Master of the Coin was such a useless man, and I had to convince Robert to dismiss him after the war. I already had a replacement in my mind. I hoped the coffers of Ironborn were full so we could at least earn some gold from these needless slaughters. Chapter 143. 290 AC. POV MC. After we took 10 towers, House Stonetree surrendered. From my familiars, I could see Reach, Westerlands, and Riverland armies were still dealing with their islands. The Westerlands were almost finished with Great Wyke and the same for Reach at Old Wyke, but the Riverland army couldn't even deal with 3 castles. The only one they were able to take was the castle of House Orquood, thanks to the Blackfish. How could a house of a paramount be so insipid? They had only one person of note, and every other house member was a cur or adult. They were fighting against small houses or houses that lost the bulk of their forces but were still struggling. As for the Reach army, Randall Tarley was almost through with it, but the fat dolt of Roses had stolen his accomplishments for himself. This had offended the Tarley rightfully, but he couldn't say anything against his paramount. This fat idiot was alienating his biggest military asset over some accomplishments. The Westerlands army, with the lead of Old Lion, had burned almost all of Great Wyke. It was apparent what Tywin was doing, he was taking his revenge. Other than the children, he killed all the males in every noble house. The Vale Lords were deployed to Pike to deal with the other castles and started the siege of Pike Castle. In case the last squid decided to run too. Royal fleet was blockading the sea, and Vale was holding the land. Lastly, under our Fat King's great hammer, many had died at Salt Cliff. With the Crownland and Stormlands armies, he was already on his way to Pike. This rebellion was coming to an end, and I had to make more contributions at the Battle of Pike. Because I used Kelio Rugiet, Lion's Roar, 2 times, I hurt my throat really bad, but thanks to Aberruclo, Life Bloom, healing magic, it healed in a day, but I shouldn't use it more than 2 times a day or have to use healing magic to use it again. We were on our way to Pike and would reach it on the morrow. When I looked through the eyes of my familiars, I could see the Great Wyke in ruin. Ruthless Tywin didn't even leave a stone standing. His attack dog, the Mountain, had slaughtered every villager he found and burned every building. Now only things standing on this big island were 3 castles, and in front of those castles were washed with crimson because of all the beheadings. The bards would most likely write another song about this slaughter too. Because Tywin had burned everything while we were spending our time stabilizing the island and taking the slaves to safety, he left the island and managed to catch up with us. Westerland army, too, would reach Pike on the morrow. The morning had come, and the sun was starting to rise above the sea. We will reach Pike in 5 or 6 hours. As usual, Keegan and I entered Lord Stark's room. Harlock was at the door with other guards. I had many accomplishments in this war. Harlock and Keegan had earned their fair share of fame too. People gave them nicknames. They call Harlock the Iron Giant, and some call him Colossus. Keegan was called Viper because of his hit-and-run fighting style. In this war, I understood that he wasn't fit to be a warrior. While I was in my own thoughts, Lord Stark said, "Before you go, I want you to promise me you will not insult or offend the king any longer." I whispered so the guards outside wouldn't hear me while I badmouthed the king. "My lord, you know it as much as I do. The king is someone without faith, and he is the one that insults the old gods with his thoughtless actions." Lord Stark sighed and said, "Even if he is still the king. I know you don't have any love for the man, but you have to respect his title." "I know, my lord. That is why I will not show any impulsive behavior. I am trying to be more in control and level-headed." Lord Stark seemed pleased at my words and sipped his wine. As he did that, I said in a low voice, "I will not insult or offend the king even if he acts like a wild boar." As soon as I said that, Lord Stark sputtered the wine from his mouth, and a small smile appeared on his face for a moment, but he quickly straightened himself up. "He is the king. He can act however he wants, but you shouldn't, even if you are acting as Druid Emrys. Remember this, 100 friends are few, and 1 enemy is too much for a smart man." I turned to an eagle and flew out of the galley. Lord Stark didn't ask me to take an oath this time. As I continue to act more level-headed, his trust in me seems to grow. When I reached the pike, half of the Vale army was cordoning the pike, and the other half had sieged and taken the other smaller castles on pike. The army of King Robert just yesterday joined the siege. I landed and transformed in the middle of the camp and scared the shit out of Crownland lords and soldiers. When the king heard I was here, he came out of his tent while fixing himself. "It looks like I interrupted essential matters. Should I make fun of him?" "Nah," I promised Lord Stark. "I should act like everyone else, like we don't know what he was doing, but it was really tough doing that while the women inside were still giggling." I did a half bow. "My king." He greeted me with a stern voice. "Druid." "My king, I have come to fulfill my promise. You had already helped us at Salt Cliff. You didn't have to come for this one." "My king, that was a little help. I provided out of my respect for you. But this one was my promise to you. My word is my bond. Get on with it then." While I was on my way here, I saw the Northern Army, and Westerland's army was a few hours away. Should I wait for them or get on with it like you said? Ned is coming, I suppose we can wait for them. Chapter 144. 290 AC. POVMC. While I was looking from the high hills, I could see the ruined Botley Castle and Lordsport Town. They were both destroyed by the Vale Lords at the order of the king. Lordsport was the main harbour of the Pike, and it was also the biggest town on Iron Islands. Vale Lords managed to drive Wynes and Botley out of their castle but couldn't finish them. They were able to retreat into Pike Castle. Greyjoy still had 20,000 men inside the castle since the remnant of the Iron Fleet had retreated into the castle too. King Robert's army had 4 times that, but the Reach and Riverland armies were still on other islands, and King Robert was rearing to go. So, with 45,000 men, he would start the invasion of the castle in a few hours. Right now, everything was out of the range of the scorpions and catapults. Under the canopy, Robert and an athletic man with a long blonde beard were drinking in laughter. The man was wearing red clothing. From my observations with the familiars, I had heard this man's name. He was called Thuras of Myr. He was a red priest of Arhillar the Red God. His believers were so fanatic that they would burn any non-believer if they could, and in many places in Essos, they did. This particular priest, I couldn't call him a devout believer. I could say he believed in Arbor Red more than the Red God. From what I gathered, he was a good melee fighter. 5 years ago, he even beat the mountain in Prince Tommen's name day tourney. He used wildfire to set his sword aflame, frighten the horses, and dismount his enemies. In this war, I heard he went through 20 swords. Because he destroys the swords with wildfire, the blacksmith charges him 3 times more, but the king is happy to pay for his drinking buddy. When I saw both of them, all I could think was this is how a realm is driven to bankruptcy. Thuras gets up from his chair and approaches me when he sees me. I heard many things about you, but there is only one God, and if your power is true, they can only come from our healer. Is he picking a fight with me, or is he that drunk? I think it is the latter. I use authenticate on him. My eyes grew with amazement because it was the first time I saw someone with mana outside of the north. His mana level was low, he had 100, but this doesn't mean he trained in arcane arts. He might have the talent, but he never worked on it. So, it might have accumulated with his age, or he is a low-level magic user. His physical stats were also good, he had 13 STR and 12 SPD. Of course, I couldn't trust the authenticate 100%. This might not be his all-out power. People tend to go beyond their limits when they are fighting with their lives on the line. In this war, I realized a very important thing about this spell. It doesn't show the peak stats of the person, it only shows the base stat, meaning what that body is capable of right that moment. This doesn't mean that when people fight, they suddenly gain miraculous power, it just means they use their body more efficiently, and of course, the chemicals that run through our body when we are relaxed and in a fight or flight situation are not the same. I think that is the main reason their stat might change when they fight for their life. I pull myself from those thoughts and look at the Red Priest in front of me. Red Priest, are you thirsting for a good death? Oh, no, I love life. No, you must be, or you wouldn't insult the old gods before me. I might not really believe the old gods, but I will not let an SSC drunkard insult our culture. No, I just meant Lord of Light comes to us in many faces. At the end of the day, you might be serving him without knowing it. Gelmio Indigo, Wind Impact. I hit him with a level 1 spell to see how he would act. He flew back and fell on his ass. Is he hiding his power, or is he really a drunkard? At the same time, Kingsguard created a wall in front of Robert, but he said, "Get the hell out of my way, like you can stop him if he wants to do something." Sometimes I like his fearless actions. If he wasn't an insufferable drunkard, I might even like him. Thuras rubs his ass and says, "Awah, now I know for sure you have magic, but you don't have to act like this. I am just saying we serve the same god." Perses, fireball. I lit a fireball in my hand and said, "Let's see if your god really loves you." I was just about to throw the spell. Robert threw his goblet to the ground and shouted, "Enough! Is this how holy men should act in front of their king?" I closed my hand and snuffed the fireball spell. With 100 mana, he can't be this weak. I was not able to guess his power level. If he is hiding it, judging from his mana, he must be a level 2 caster at best. He offered his hand for a shake and said, "As the king said, we should stop fighting." I cast my shield spell and accepted his hand, but I sent my mana into him the moment I grabbed his hand. Nothing would happen if he knew how to control mana, but if he didn't, he would feel sick, and if I continued to pour mana into him, he would die. After a few seconds, I stopped and observed him, but the weird thing is that I felt something else in him while I was pouring the mana. A different kind of energy, but a kind I have never felt before. He started to stumble and puked. People around us thought this was because of the wine, but he clearly got sick because of the mana. Even with this, I cannot be sure he might have allowed me to hurt him, knowing it would not be permanent. I should be wary of him as long as I am here. Chapter 145. 290 AC. POVMC. It was time for the war to start. Westerland's army disembarked and took their place, and the Northern army was getting off right now. I started casting the combined magic Crimson Fireball and released it. The giant fireball started flying toward the gate and exploded on the gate. The soldiers on top of the gate were shouting in panic. After the dust had settled, what I saw didn't make sense. The gate had burn marks on it, but it was standing strong. How was this possible? I started casting another Crimson Fireball and sent it to the gate, and it exploded. The soldier was again shouting in a panic since the gate shook with great force, but again, when the dust was settled, the gate was burned a bit more. Robert came next to me on top of his horse in his full plate armor with deer antlers on top of his helmet and said, "Druid, what is wrong? Why is the gate still up?" "I do not know, the gates and walls must be warded. My magic does not work on them." "Imu, go and look under the gate." See if getting past it from underground is possible, but don't forget your safety is the most important. If you sense something dangerous, retreat immediately. Yes, master. As he was moving down my leg, he disabled his miniaturization spell, and a giant white snake came out of my robe and then dived into the ground after a few seconds. Seeing this, the horses started to neigh in panic, and they reared up while flailing their front legs. Robert almost fell off his horse, but he was able to rein in his horse. Not all the King's Guard was that lucky. Kingslayer and Sir Boros Blount fell off their horse, but they were lucky they didn't break anything since the ground was muddy. Robert asked. What was that? One of my familiars. Was that a giant snake, and did that snake get into the ground like it was water? My king, your great observational abilities awe me. Like all of my familiars, they are blessed animals and have magical abilities. Master, I can pass under the ground. There isn't any magical barrier here. I turned into an eagle and flew toward the gate. When I came into the scorpion's range, I landed and cast R.O.B, air bubble, Melada Tegan, meld with earth, dot. A clear bubble wrapped around my face like a second skin, and I sank into the earth. Thanks to the air bubble, I will be able to breathe underground for 10 minutes. First, I got close to the walls, touched them, and tried to feel why my magic didn't work, and I found out the reason fast. They were full of runes. Some runes, I understood, but most didn't. I had to get more powerful. I understood the part about protection, but they must have never thought someone would dive into the earth and pass under it. But the walls were deeper than 2 meters, so I had to use the gate. Under the gate, there wasn't an underground part. It was just compacted dirt. Emma was waiting for me there. As soon as I passed the ground, I used Percy Sondo's Burning Hand to create a landing zone for my familiars, but I didn't summon all of them. Only Barris and Artio, Erebus, and Poe were already here. Artio was around 10 moons old but had reached the size of an adult black bear. Her height was 1 m, and she weighed around 400 kilograms. The second I summoned them, I cast armor magic and other buffs on them. Master. Artio is happy, Master called. But Artio mad, Master didn't visit. The frightened soldiers collected their courage and attacked the familiars. Master Artio doesn't like playing this game. Bad men keep hitting Artio. Bad men, Artio doesn't want to play with you. Go away. She swiped her giant paw and ripped the man's head off. The head flew back towards the Ironborn, and you could see the fear in their eyes. POVTHRD person. To Ermer, it looked cute the way Artio acted since she thought they were playing a bad game. She started to throw a temper tantrum. Ermer looked at the carnage and thought, this is what happens when a 2-name-day-old child is put inside a 400 kilograms of awesomeness. She was hitting left and right. She bruises while under the protection of armor magic, but it doesn't hurt her that much and makes her angrier at them. The soldiers were bewildered. 1 second, they were getting ready to fight, and the next second there was a wall of flames, and after the flames, there were giant animals. Keep them away from me until I open the gate. From the royal army's side, they could see flames rise from behind the gates, and all kinds of animal roars could be heard. Roars and screams keep rising. After finding the opening mechanism, Ermer opened the gate and created 2 pillars to keep the gates open. The gate was working, but if they wanted to close it, they needed to destroy the pillars first. Retreat, all of you follow me. After killing a few hundred men and opening the gate, they retreat. After coming out of the gate, Ermer turns into an eagle, flies toward the galley, and all the other familiars go toward the mountain. The soldiers looked with open mouths as a giant dog and a big bear ran out of the gates. When Ermer returned with the northern army, the control of the first keep still wasn't secured. Thuras of Myr had charged through the gate after Ermer left, and after him came Jaime Lannister. The vanguard of the northern army was made out of Umbers, and Mormonts had already charged through the gates. After casting some buff at Lord Stark and his own men, Ermer charged into the battle too. POVMC. I dismounted from Sith because there wasn't much opportunity to march with Sith since everywhere was full of people, and I couldn't charge through while trampling our own men. I choose a different approach. I put one of Lord Stark's banners on my back. After that, I walked up to a deserted part of the wall and started climbing toward an enemy's middle tower while using Primiferous, primal savagery. People could not see my claws and were wondering how I could scale the wall so fast. After I reached the top, some archers were at the top of the tower, but they didn't see me. No one would control the side of the tower to see if someone was climbing it without a ladder or a rope. Their attention was on the men that were pouring through the gate. I pulled one of the archers down, and after climbing up, I pulled the daggers from my belt. In this kind of narrow space, short weapons were better than swords. While I was fighting, one of the men was trying to attack me from behind. Since I have Rovagon Grze, bark armor, on me, the attack wouldn't have worked, but Emu didn't allow him to attack and spewed venom on the face of the man. He had learned this trick on Harlaw Island. The man's eyes almost melted down. After I killed all the soldiers, I climbed on top of the tower's roof, took down the Greyjoy banner, and replaced it with a Stark banner. I could hear the chanting coming from the ground. Some were chanting for me, and others chanted for Stark. Kelio Rugiet, Lion's Roar, ... For the KNG in the north. Charge! After my shout, the army started fighting with unstoppable momentum, and Ironborn started to lose their will. At that moment, the southern tower started collapsing because of the siege engines, and Greyjoy men began to retreat into the next keep. I started coming down from the tower, but the inside of the tower was still full of Greyjoy men. When I came out of the bottom of the tower, my armor was painted crimson. I had slaughtered almost everyone inside that tower. It took us 4 hours to take the gatehouse and its 3 towers. The horn for halting the attack was sounded. It looks like the fighting for today was done. Chapter 146. 290 AC. POVMC. While everyone was taking care of their wounded and resting, I was trying to block out Ardio's endless questions. Since the moment she sensed I was no longer fighting, she wouldn't shut up. I think she told me everything she was up to last 6 months. Master, why Ardio's mother can't talk? She only talks with one word: follow, eat, stop, hunt. Why she talks like that? When Ardio talks her, like Ardio talks Big Brother Barris, she doesn't understand Ardio. You will understand that when you fully grow up. Because you are unique. Brother Barris will tell you everything, so you should ask your every question to him. Then I heard Barris' pleading voice. Master, why are you doing this to me? After our talk was over, I looked around me. This island was stripped bare, there were hardly any trees left. So, my familiars had retreated into the mountain 5 kilometers away from here. Poe and Erebus come back after turning small, but someone has to look after Ardio, and as always, her babysitter is Barris. I had summoned Nin to listen into the King's War Council. One of the Stormland's lords said, My king, we should have pressed on. We could have taken the second keep by now, and the war would be almost over. Lord Stark said. They have raised the bridge that connects to the Great Keep. How do you expect to reach them? We had to end the attack, so we wouldn't lose men needlessly. Poe, Erebus, take your murders and find a different entrance to the Great Keep. I don't think they would imprison themselves there without a way out. Poe and Erebus took off, and 120 crows and ravens took off around the army too. They started circling all over the Pike Castle, and they didn't have any way out. The only other way in was one ship pier at the bottom of Sea Tower. They had already destroyed the wooden stairs that go to the pier. Lord Royce said. There is 5 meters distance between the 2 parts of the risen bridge. We could try creating a R.O.B bridge. Tywin scoffed at the idea and didn't say anything else. Lord Royce, with an angry voice, said. What is so funny, Lord Tywin? Do you think they are going to just let you create a bridge? Even if they did, all they had to do would be to throw another boulder while our men started passing, and we would lose tens, mayhaps 100 men for no reason. Another Vale Lord said. Can't we order the Druid to help us? He always creates a big monolith, he must be able to control stone too. Like, I am going to help you assholes. This time it was King's time to scoff. Robert said. He wouldn't help us if we were drowning. The only reason he helped us was to show the might of the old gods, and didn't you see his magic didn't affect the castle? He was only able to open the gate using the mechanism. Ned, do you really not know who he is? Of course, I wouldn't help you if there wasn't something in it for me. Lord Stark said with a stern voice. My king, I don't think he would announce who he is left and right. It was a nice diversion from Lord Stark. If the king asked more directly, he has no chance but to lie. After a while, Poe came to me and told me what had happened at Pike Castle, but there weren't many things of importance. For the next 2 weeks, we couldn't make any progress. We had many skirmishes, but they would always drop a giant rock and break our assault. I was sending Poe and Erebus out for scouting every day, and we couldn't get any useful information. But today's information was different. Erebus had seen a hole they used to dump trash from the kitchen's small island. The hole was only 1 meter big, and it was 60 meters above the ground. The kitchen was on its own island that was connected to the Great Keep with an archway. A plan started to form in my head. Even if we couldn't reach the bridge mechanism on the Great Keep, at worst, if we take the kitchen island, we could burn it and starve them. I told about my plan to Lord Stark, and he was in deep thought. It is a bold and reckless plan, but it could work if you can climb all the way there and sneak into the Great Keep and lower the bridge. He was thinking deeply, and he reached the same conclusion as me. At worst, we could burn their supplies. How many men do you need? It would bring too much attention if we are more than a few. I would rather only bring Harlock and Keegan with me. You will be too few. Can you open the gates with only 2 men? I can if I could use my spells more freely. If I bring more people, it would be detrimental to me. I can't use my powers. While we are on the topic, why couldn't you blow the gate open? There were powerful protection wards on these walls and gates. Someone more powerful than me created them. I can create wards, but they would only last 1 hour. But if I sacrificed a human 1 day at most. But those wards were ancient, and they were starting to weaken. At their peak, they must be more powerful than this. Are you saying the stories about the Age of Heroes were true? I think so. I took a deep breath and said. My lord, I am going to tell you something I never told anyone before. You might think I am using God's name when I say old gods sent me, but it is not. You might even think I am crazy, but here it goes. A god bestowed this power on me directly. I do not know if it was an old god, but it was definitely a god. That god said the balance of this world was off, and I was sent here to restore balance. That is all I know. For a while, Lord Stark just looked at me without saying anything, then he drank his cup in one go and released a deep breath. He opened his mouth to say something but gave up and poured himself a new cup and drank it all at once. After collecting his thoughts, he said. I don't know if what you say is true, but one thing is for sure, you are not an ordinary boy. You are so talented that it is unnatural. I know you can kill thousands or heal the land and its people with your power. I do not know if you are a gift to the North or a curse, but I want you to know that if you try to hurt the people of the North, I will stand against you with all my power. I always tell you, my lord. This land is my home, I want to make the North the greatest realm. I don't know what God meant when he said out of balance, but until I find my real reason, I will keep fighting for the North. Chapter 147. 290 AC. POVMC. I had been standing in front of the king's tent for at least half an hour, and they were having a heated conversation inside. Thanks to Nin, I knew what they were talking about. Royce was against the idea of putting me as the leader of this plan since I was 16 name days old. He kept talking about how someone more experienced must go with us, and 3 men won't be enough. He was right on that part. If we were normal men, even if we were able to climb in there, it would be impossible for them to do any significant damage before dying. But I am not ordinary, and this plan will work. I know I can reach the Great Keep's gate. Robert said. Enough, call Sir Drazel in. After giving the king a bow, I stood straight in front of him. He said. I have heard your plan, how the hell did you know there was an entry point there? I was expecting this question, so after telling Lord Stark and before coming here, I openly used my warging to fly around with my ravens and scouted around the Great Keep to explain how I came by this info. I told this explanation to King. Are you sure you can do the climbing? I did climb the tower, and this would be a little bit harder because of the strong winds around the cliff base. Let's say you managed to climb, but how will the other 2 do it? Are they good climbers too? No, my king. They are not good climbers. I am going to pull a rope with me while climbing. I will hammer hooks at certain intervals and fix the rope there. Of course, since we don't have 60 meters of rope, I have to fix every joint to the cliff. We should choose a time when the waves and winds are strong. This will make the climb difficult, but in this way, the waves crashing against the shore and the howling of the wind will mask our noise. Lord Royce said. My king, I still think 3 people wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. We should send more people. My lord, even 50 wouldn't be able to accomplish anything if they go in to fight. We are not going there to fight, what I am going to do is sneak in. If we are fighting, it means we failed. We are going to act as Ironborns. It would be perfect if we could reach the gate mechanism. If we cannot, we will start a fire. For the glory of the North, we will gladly sacrifice our lives. I really want to punch this guy's face in. Will you please shut up already? Robert took a big gulp from his wine and said. We are not going to lose anything. If this brave man of the North wants to do this, we cannot stand in their way. Ned, you are fortunate this time around. I really like this boy, he will become someone important if he lives through this war. Ha ha ha. We had to wait for the ropes to be ready for the week and were on our way. In a medieval world, everything took a lot of time. We didn't have 60 meters of rope, so they had to take down the ropes from the galleys, and it took a lot of work and time. With the cover of the night, our small boat docked at the base of Kitchen Island. There were small rocky clearings around the base because of all the waves. We put all the ropes and hooks down here and waited for the boat to go away. I started using Formotigan, Mold Earth, and Primiferous, Primal Savagery, to climb, but I didn't take the rope with me, all I took were the hooks. I didn't even take the hammer because I didn't need it. I was creating a stair here. The rope was for Harlock and Keegan's safety. If I slip and fall, I can just turn into an eagle, but the twins would die. As I reached 8 meters, I stopped. Poe, Erebus, please bring me a rope. 2 of them turned to their full size and grabbed a rope and hook. While they were coming close to me, I created deeper holes and put my feet in there, and anchored myself. So I wouldn't lose my balance because of the wind they create while flapping. Erebus's swing span was 4 meters, and the wind he created was not weak. I secured the hook to the cliff with magic and tied one end of the rope tightly to the hook. After that, I continued climbing and did the same thing every 5 to 8 meters until I reached the base of the castle wall, when I tried to use Formotigan, Mold Earth, on the wall. It didn't work, damn it, these walls were warded too. I could create a small hole, and my magic was a little effective. The gate was burned a little when I used Crimson Fireball, but I would need 10 or 20 of them to break the gate. The same here, it would cost at least 10 times the mana, and I didn't have that much. I have to use a hammer. Erebus, I need the hammer at the bottom. Can you bring it? Using the hammer was really hard. It had taken me 1 hour to lay 50 meters of rope, but the last 10 meters had taken 3 hours because of all the hammering. One of the reasons it took as long as it did. I was trying not to make rhythmic sounds so it wouldn't pull unwanted attention. After 3 hours of work, we were almost ready. Promodines, locate animals, human. I cast the spell, but nothing happened, and I realized one of the runes that I didn't know the meaning of must be blocking scouting spells. I got inside the trash chute, and it was disgusting. The chute was 3 meters long, and I had to claw my way through it by wedging my claws between the stones. I reached the end and cast the same spell again, but this time it worked. So, it only wards from outside. There wasn't anyone in this part of the kitchen, and I tied the rope to a beam. Then I told Poe to signal the twins. She went down and signaled them. After they got here, the second part of my plan started. Chapter 148. 290 AC. POVMC. I had already memorized the road to the main gate from the prisoners I had interrogated. The problem was getting past the archway connecting the kitchen island to the Great Keep. We had to pass 2 big gates at both ends of the archway. That is when the interrogation of the prisoners came to hand. From them, we learned the name of the person responsible for the main gate. His name was Simon Pike. He was a bastard of House Botley and was one mean son of bitch. From what I gather, he would severely punish anyone under him, even for the most minor slights. Like most Ironborn, he was a bully, afraid of people more powerful than him but a nightmare to everyone under him. After cutting the rope so no one would see it, we sat on the floor and acted like lazy soldiers hiding to sleep. When the plan was approved, I dropped Nin and Keelim and told them to scout the castle and dominate all the rats in it. One of the reasons I was caught off guard about the scouting ward was that I was able to hear them over the walls. The spells didn't work, but my connection did. There could be 2 explanations for this: either these wards are not strong enough to stop spiritual connections, or because there were no druids in this world before, the wards cannot identify the connection with my familiars as magic. Among the prisoners we had, no one knew someone in the kitchen, but thanks to Nin and Keelim, I had been observing them for a few days. I chose the most grumpy and angry guy among them and learned his name. Dagon was like a drill sergeant and wanted everything to run perfectly. There weren't any nobles in the kitchen like everywhere in West Eros. Being a cook was always seen as a lowly job among the nobles. We waited for morning to come. When the time came, I buffed all of us, and we left the room. We started searching for the warehouse. When we found it, there were 6 guards at its gate and a clerk to take note of what went in and out of the warehouse, but we weren't there for a fight. This was where the second half of my plan started. If that plan didn't work, we had to kill them and burn the granary. Halt! Who are you? We came from the main gate. Captain Simon Pike sent us. Our water barrels are empty, and he wants us to bring the new ones. The clerk raised his head and looked at me with dead fish-like eyes. This guy must love his job. He was full of life and passion. He talked with a slow and weary voice. I cannot give you that without a proper order. I put my hand on my dagger and said. I told you we are coming from the main gate, and Simon Pike ordered this. If we return empty-handed, we will get a beating, and if that happens naturally, you have to live the rest of your life while looking behind you because I will shove this dagger up your ass at the first opportunity I have. The guards put their hands on their swords, and the clerk said. Are you threatening me? No, I am giving you a promise, I am not getting a beating because of a fucking water barrel. Keegan got in between us and said. Okay, okay. Let's all be calm. We are all on the same side. Right now, we should only fight against the land dwellers. Sir, we cannot go back empty-handed. He asked for 3 barrels. Even if we return with 2 barrels, he will punish us. Please, today, choose to have friends rather than enemies. It is just water barrels. The clerk took a deep breath and signaled the guards. We were able to get our hands on some barrels. Now we have to pull these 2 more times, and this will be enough to reach success. Each of us picked up a barrel and started to head toward the archway. Keegan said. Sir, I can't believe it worked. The siege just started. The reality didn't hit them yet, so it is normal for the clerks to give resources to calm the atmosphere, but when the siege goes on for a month, this water barrel would be worth more than a gold dragon. Harlock said. What are we going to do now? We are going to use the name of the head chef and Simon to pass to the other side. Why do we need the head chef's name? Think of it this way, from what we gathered, Simon is shit, and the head chef is not much different from him. You might grind your teeth and step on one shit, but would you want to step on another one right after? If we give both of their names, that heightens the chance guard wouldn't want to ask questions about us too deeply. When we got to the archway that connects to the Great Keep, guards asked. Who are you, and where are you going? Chef Dogan asked us to take the water barrels Captain Simon Pike wanted to the main gate. When the guard heard those names, it worked like a charm. I could see the disgust on his face when he heard the names. It was like he was saying, just keep those shitheads away from me. He turned and looked at his captain. After they looked into the barrels, he nodded. Go. On the other side of the bridge, there were 2 guards. One was young, the other one was an old guy that was half sleeping. We came to the gate. A young guard stopped us. You do not have an entry permit. I cannot take you to Great Keep. Go back and bring a permit with a seal from the head chef. Ah, come on, why are you doing your job seriously? Just half-ass it. When the other guard heard the head chef, he woke up and said. What is the problem? They do not have any seal or permit for entry. The old guard asked. Who are you guys? I never saw any one of you here before. We are not from Pike. We are from Harlaw, but our lord died at Fair Island, and we were brought here, and we are scattered in different parts of the castle because we don't have a lord. Then why do you want to enter Great Keep? Stay where you were stationed, and what is this about the head chef? Chef Dogan asked us to take the water barrels Captain Simon Pike wanted to the main gate. When the old guard heard the names, he grimaced, and that gave me hope. Sir, we are going to be late, Chef Dogan told us to hurry. The young guard said. I don't care what he said, I can't let you pass. Upon hearing what the young guard said, the old guard's eyes grew in shock, and he slapped the young guard on the back of his head. What the hell was that for? Are you out of your mind? Why the hell are you getting me involved with those 2 crazies? Do you want to eat rotten gruel for the rest of your life? You don't mess with a head chef. He turned to us and said. Just go. We were able to pass the gates and reach the control room above the main gate. From here, they were able to raise the drawbridge and portcullis. Before we got inside, I refreshed all of our buffs. From this point on, chaos was going to erupt. We got into the room. There were 30 to 35 guards in the room since this was also the guard room. Inside the big stone room were a few tables and chairs. Around those tables, the guards were playing cards. Close to the outside walls, there were 3 handwheels connected to the large chains. One of the handwheels was bigger than the others. It must be the drawbridge, and the other 2 must be the portcullis. Chapter 149. 290 AC. POVMC. Keegan started pulling attention to himself while I touched the stone walls to see if they were warded, and they were not. A sinister smile crept up to my face. This was going to make our job so much easier. While everyone's attention was on Keegan, I slowly started to bend the stones around the doors and sealed them. The guardroom had 2 doors, the one in the west that we come in and the one in the east. Both doors led to the ramparts. When I was done wedging the doors shut, I came close to Keegan and gave them a signal. "Sir, Chef Dagon sent those water barrels to Captain Simon Pike. Is he here?" One of the men playing cards raised his head from the game and said. "I am Simon, why the hell would he send those?" Harlock said. "Mayhaps, he thought you got thirsty. And he threw the big barrel like it was weightless." Harlock was getting stronger, now he had 12 STR. The hurling barrel hit Simon and the men around him. I could see Simon hitting the stone wall and bursting like a watermelon. The men were in shock. They didn't know what was happening. As Harlock gets stronger, Keegan gets faster. He had 11 speed by himself. When I buffed him, he was moving like a ghost. The second Harlock threw the barrel, Keegan let go of his barrel, but before the barrel could reach the ground, he pulled his daggers and already cut the throat of 3 soldiers. It didn't even take us 2 minutes to kill all the soldiers. Because of the commotion we caused, other men were trying to open the doors and shouting for Simon to see if he was okay. Right at that moment, the drawbridge came down, and the portcullis started to rise. POV Ned Stark. Aylmer had told me to ready the army by the morning but not to arouse suspicion. I told them to stay in their tent. Everyone was ready to charge, and we were waiting for his signal. But other lords and Robert were not that trusting of Aylmer because they didn't really know what he was capable of. Even, I was not sure what he was really capable of. I didn't really want to believe the gods really sent him, but he was so unnatural for this not to be true. The way he talks and acts, his talent, his intelligence, all the arrows were pointing at the obvious truth. He wasn't born, he was tailored like a tunic. He was obviously tailored for war. Caw. Caw. While I was lost in my thought, the cawing of a raven brought me back to reality. The raven was Aylmer's, I think he called it Poe. The one with the white feathers on its head. This was it, the signal. I raised from my chair in a hurry and started shouting orders. POV third person. With the drawbridge coming down and portcullis rising, Northern Army started to pour in through the gate, and Yoram Mormont was the leader of the vanguard units. With his full plate armor and bare-crested shield, he was leading his troops from the thick of the fight. Aylmer and the twins waited a bit so the Northern Army would advance. If they joined the fray without armor and they started blocking swords with their hands and arms, people would be shocked. Aylmer pulled Nin and Kilim from the castle using Poe and Erebus. The 2 mice didn't show any talent in magic yet. When the Northern Vanguard started controlling the main gate, Aylmer and the twin got out of the guardroom and went down to the main gate. There, Sith was waiting with their weapons and armor. With the help of other men there, they got ready and joined the fight. By the time Aylmer was ready for the fight, every other army had started pouring through the gates. Ironborns might be bullies, but they were not schoolyard bullies, they were zealot bullies and were putting a significant resistance. Yoram Mormont was trying to advance into the Great Keep but was met with great resistance in every corner, stair, and step. Especially the spiral stairs were a nightmare to advance. The structure of the stairs was made so the defenders would have an easy time while it would be hard for the invaders. Because of the clockwise spiral, Northern soldiers had to mind the walls while swinging their swords since most of them were right-handed, but the defenders had no problem because they could use the natural curve of the stairs. Thanks to the narrow spiraling stairs, a small force was able to defend against a greater force. That was only true until Aylmer and Harlock reached the choke point. Thanks to the level 4 armor magic and buffed Harlock, they were advancing like the defending army wasn't even there. Every hit still hurt them with blunt force, but thanks to the shield, armor, and padding, it was bearable. With a steady speed, they kept advancing. Harlock might move like an iron giant, but his fighting was clumsy and brute. On the other hand, Aylmer fought with the finesse of a master. He would dodge, use his pommel, parry, and riposted, but then he started to grapple with the enemy. R.O.B decided, rather than killing them right away, he would use them as training dummies. With his fight against Horus Harlaw, he realized he was still weak with grapple moves. He put Red Rain in its scabbard and pulled his dagger from his belt. He would grapple a man to the ground and finish him off with a stab to the weak areas, even if the men didn't have armor. He was acting like everyone had full plate armor. While the Northern and Royal Army pushed for the throne room, Vale and Westerland's army started spreading through the Great Keep and tried to wrest control from Ironborns. Tywin was not happy to be relegated to a glorified servant. To clean up what was left after his master's mess, but he didn't voice his discontent and did what he always did. He did things his own way. He gave his men an unofficial order to raid and pillage. He released his dog's leash and sicked him onto the people of Pike. When the spiral stairs met at the front of the Great Hall, R.O.B saw Lord Stark and King Robert coming from the other side. The king was like a kid in a candy store. While bashing people's heads in, he was laughing with a peal of uncontrollable laughter. Looking at him, you would think the crest animal of his house would be a wild boar. He had 15 STR and 12 SPD. Seeing this, R.O.B thought how strong he was when at his peak. He must have an unnatural strength. Lord Stark was a decent swordsman and fighter, but he was falling back, so R.O.B used some buffs on him. Feeling that his body was suddenly filled with a familiar power, Lord Stark killed the man in front of him, and he tried to find out where R.O.B was. Seeing him, Lord Stark thanked him with a silent nod and joined the fight with a renewed fervor. They were pushing the Ironborn forces to the Great Hall. With the two monsters, Robert and Harlech's final push, they burst through the gates. The inside of the Great Hall was damp and gloomy like the rest of Pike, but this room had a sense of eeriness to itself. The giant black Kraken and the black throne chair in front of it weren't helping but added to the bad atmosphere. The throne of Iron Island was called Sea Stone Chair. The Sea Stone Chair is made of a block of oily black stone carved into the shape of a kraken. Legend says it was found on the shores of Oldwick by first men when they came to the Iron Islands. Balon Greyjoy was sitting on this sea stone chair when Robert saw Balon on his throne. He shouted in a voice filled with excitement and anticipation. "Balon, I am going to crack your rebellious skull. Just sit there and wait patiently. It will be your turn after I am done with your sissy men." Chapter 150. 290 AC. POV third person. Balon Greyjoy didn't know what to do. This was not what Drowned God had shown him. He had shown power and glory for House Greyjoy. Why did all go wrong? Why did the Drowned God have forsaken him? That was all he could think of, and now, it was time to face the wrath of Robert Baratheon. Their motto was "Not ours is the fury for nothing." As Robert looked at Balon, that was sitting on his throne like a statue, he was getting angrier. He enjoyed the battle immensely rather than spending those boring and tedious peaceful years, but now the fighting was coming to an end. His rage for the rebellion was taking over. How dared this stupid squid rebel and try to take something that belonged to him? Never. He will never allow someone else to take something that rightfully belongs to him. He was going to crush that squid's head with his bare hands. As Robert continues to bash squid skulls, from the corner of his eyes, he sees a big man taller than 2 meters reaping the Ironborn like they were freshly grown grain. He was using a warhammer too. Right after him was the wonder boy of Ned, Sir Drazzle, but Robert thought the boy was fighting a bit weirdly. He wasn't using his Valyrian steel sword, he was fighting with a dagger while throwing the enemies he faced to the ground and stabbing them. It was like he was trying to kill them while grappling. R.O.B, while trying to get better at grappling, he saw Sir Selmy and Kingslayer. Sir Selmy had 13 STR and 13 SPD, and Kingslayer had 14 STR and 14.4 SPD. Sir Selmy might have lower stats than Jaime, but he was able to dispatch his enemies faster. His movement and attack had a certain exquisiteness and tranquility to them. It was like he knew what his enemy was going to do before they did. His every action was refined. On the other hand, Jaime's movement and attacks were explosive and fierce compared to Sir Selmy's. His moves were more energetic and full of excitement, but R.O.B couldn't see an ounce of mental acuteness in his fighting form. Jaime was entirely fighting on instinct and physical prowess. In his opinion, R.O.B liked Sir Selmy's fighting style more, it was more refined and getting close to perfect. Robert had missed this feeling of superiority when you see your enemies groveling in defeat. He was starting to think about how he was going to punish Balon, the so-called king of salt and rock. Should he make him eat rock salts until he chokes on them, or should he be quick about it and just bash his head in as he said he would? While Robert was fighting with great joy, a shout destroyed all his excitement and joy. Men of the Iron Islands, stop fighting. We lost. King Robert, let's stop this needless bloodshed. Balon started shouting of surrender. The second he lost the main gate, Balon knew they had lost but couldn't bring himself to accept it, but if he let this fight continue, Iron Islands would needlessly lose manpower. The Ironborn started throwing their weapons to the ground, and deafening cries of cheers started to come from the Iron Throne forces. The rebellion was over. Robert slowly comes toward Balon and stands in front of him. He was feeling cheated out of a good fight. He was still hungry for more. Robert suddenly felt a great sense of emptiness and loss. He was going to go back to those days of atrophy and boredom. So, he picked up a sword and threw it to Balon, then shouted. Pick up the sword and fight like a man. Are you not the king of salt and rock? Pick it up. Balon did not react for a moment and fell to his knees. King Robert, please forgive this rebellious subject. He begged for forgiveness, he didn't care about honor. All he needed to do was live. If he lives, there will come a time Ironborn can rise again, but for now, he needs to suck it up and beg for forgiveness. His will was also broken a bit. He had lost all of his potential heirs. All he was left was the most useless of all, Theon. The wuss was more skittish than a fish. He was no kraken. While Balon was thinking about those things, with great fury, Robert raised his warhammer, but before he could decide to strike it, he heard Ned. My king, please be merciful. It would not be honorable to kill a surrendered man. At that moment, Aylmer cringed and thought, here we go again with all that honor bullshit. Robert said in anger. Do I have to be honorable to execute a rebel? If I am not mistaken, rebellion is still an offense punishable by death. I am just executing the law. Lord Royce said. You are right, my king, but Iron Islands will become too unruly if you kill him. Even if they give up the fight, they will continue to raid the coastal towns. Robert lowered his warhammer reluctantly. Ned and John would be angry and nag at him if he executed Balon now. He could run away from Ned's nagging by going back to King's Landing, but there was no running away from John's nagging. Robert contemplated for a while which one was worth more. He would love to crack that skull, but after it came the nagging, and the Ironborn would create unrest in the region, too. They wouldn't dare to revolt again. So, there was no chance for war, but they would be a great nuisance to me and create a needless headache. Robert decided that, for a moment's pleasure, it wasn't worth the moons or years of headaches, and he said. Then how should we punish him, Ned? First of all, he should swear allegiance to you right now, and we should discuss the rest on the morrow. Aylmer wanted to shout at the top of his lungs. He has broken his oath already, it doesn't matter if he swears again. POVMC. With the end of the war, we brought Pike under our control, and everyone was taking care of their wounded. I had to return as the Druid to heal the wounded, but this time I couldn't use the scout as an excuse, so I had to act exhausted to be excused. Since I was the one who opened the gates, other than the king, nobody said anything when I left the celebration table. He forced me to drink 8 more cups before I could leave the festivities, and he also declared me a hero. Thanks to my passive poison resistance, alcohol hardly worked on me. Chapter 151. 290 AC. POVMC. As I immersed myself in the mending of wounded soldiers through healing rituals, I later returned to the throne room, a sensation tugging at my senses that urged me to explore further. The chamber contained a modest assemblage, predominantly guards, as Lord Balon had been confined to his solar in the sea tower. Scanning the room, my gaze locked onto the throne itself. An unsettling chill began to creep over me, growing in intensity as I approached the throne, which exuded an uncanny aura. A bead of cold sweat traversed my spine as my fingers neared the ebony, oil-like surface of the seat. Despite the temptation to touch it, an internal voice cautioned me otherwise, an inexplicable dread coiling within. A moment away from contact, I abruptly recoiled, as if compelled by an instinctual force. I grappled with comprehending the enigmatic nature of the throne. It was glaringly apparent that this was no ordinary stone structure. My very essence cautioned against touching it, sensing the disruption it wielded upon the natural energy around it. Analyzing it physically, however, proved a daunting task, its sheer presence thwarted my attempts. The sensation of being ill-prepared and inadequately strong enveloped me, akin to my intuition regarding the fire realm membrane. Just as that would have incinerated me, this throne seemed to beckon an intensity I was unready to confront. Within the confines of a strategy room, the king and other lords engaged in a discourse concerning the fate of the Iron Islands and Ballon. Standing guard outside were Marin Trant and Preston Greenfield, who eventually granted me entry after a brief pause. Assisted by Nin's abilities, I was already privy to the ongoing conversation. Their decision had been to allocate the spoils of war. Half of the gold was destined for the king, amounting to 2 million gold dragons. The remainder would be shared among the other lords. As the discussion unfolded, Lord Stark made a request for all the thralls residing on the islands, totaling around 500,000 people, as I counselled. Acknowledging the North's substantial contribution to the war, the second largest share was granted to Lord Stark. In addition to the thralls, he received 800,000 gold dragons. Lord Tywin, while displeased at being surpassed by others, was impotent to alter the arrangement. Most lords exhibited a greater interest in the gold than in the thralls. While the concept of free labor held appeal, their more populous lands diminished the significance of such offerings. Entering the damp and dimly lit room, I observed the assembly gathered around a sprawling table adorned with a map of the Iron Islands. Maesters present were laden with papers, their expressions studious and concentrated. Aside from the central table, the room's ambience was muted, save for the presence of cup-bearers tending to the king's hydration needs. Upon spotting me, the king raised his cup with a hint of mockery, jesting, "Here arrives the priest of the old gods. Your Grace. What is it that you seek, Druid? I desire to learn of your intentions concerning Ballon's punishment." At that juncture, Lord Royce interjected with a stern tone. "Since you shroud your true identity, I cannot ascertain with certainty. Yet, your actions indicate a lack of noble upbringing, necessitating refraining from addressing a lord by their given name. Even in captivity, Lord Ballon remains a noble. In the eyes of the old gods, I stand as a more honourable and noble figure than traitorous turncoats like the Royces. How far the once mighty bronze kings have fallen, reduced to the pawns of the seven. That ancient bronze armour, blessed by the old gods, is not a vestment you merit." A faint hand twitched toward a sword's hilt emanated from Lord Royce, prompting the king's guards' vigilance over Robert's safety. "Lord Royce," I cautioned, "let's not mar the king's mood with your guts on the floor. Please, keep your blade sheathed. While I would be honoured to paint the ground with the bloodline of your turncoat heritage, let's refrain from such folly." Dispensing a surge of mana that induced nausea among the assembled lords, I continued, "Let's be unequivocal about who I am. I am not a noble, yet neither am I a subject of your lords. Courtesy begets courtesy, and I shall mirror the respect I am shown. However, I will not tolerate insolence, such as that exhibited by Lord Royce. I seek neither enmity nor subservience, I stand not as a craven to be trifled with." My attention turned to Lord Royce, questioning. "Shall we engage in a fight, or might we focus on more pressing matters? If you want, I won't even use my magic. You are not even worthy of it." Robert observed silently, allowing Lord Royce's actions to dictate his next move. Likely, he cared little if conflict ensued, even potentially favouring it. Lord Royce glanced at the king, discerning Robert's inclination to remain neutral. Consequently, he withdrew his hand from his weapon, reseating himself. Placing his emptied cup on the table, Robert remarked, "Your presence certainly enlivens proceedings, Druid. We've resolved to take his sole surviving son into Lord Stark's custody, and we've emptied his treasury of valuables. My king, such measures would not suffice to deter him or eliminate the iron-born menace plaguing the north." Holster Tully interjected. "Are you implying he would jeopardize his son's life? With his son under Lord Stark's guardianship, any rebellion would cost the son his life, a kinslaying of Ballon's own making. Kinslaying was deeply taboo in Westeros, leading to the ostracism of those who committed it. Would a man of Ballon's ilk truly anguish over his son's fate? He has already forsaken oaths, do you truly expect him to honour them? A genuine peace cannot be achieved so long as archaic traditions endure. I comprehend your reservations, your grace. You fear the consequences of Ballon's execution, yet granting him clemency as a breaker of oaths and rebel would gravely imperil your legacy." Robert's interest was piqued, and he questioned, "Do you possess an alternative solution, or is this merely empty rhetoric?" Chapter 152. 290 AC. POVMC. Do you possess an alternative solution, or is this merely empty rhetoric? The lingering discomfort that Robert held due to my past escapades seemed to fuel his penchant for playful jabs. His ability to seize any opportunity to jab at my expense was a testament to this. "Yes, my king, I have an idea, I ventured forth with my proposal. We divide the Iron Islands by electing a new Lord Reaper of the Iron Island or creating a new title equal to it. A subtle shake of heads from Lord Royce and Tully followed, with Royce voicing his reservations. My king, we cannot take someone's birthright, and it would be the same as killing Balan. Since the conquest, Greyjoys were the Lord Reaper of Iron Island. This will destabilize the Iron Islands. Royce, it seemed, adhered steadfastly to principles of honor, reflecting his honorable nature. Nonetheless, I pressed on, driven by practical considerations. Lord Royce, that is the point. You can just listen if you cannot keep up with the discussion. Nobody would oppose that. The tinge of anger and embarrassment on Royce's face was undeniable, yet I forged ahead, unwavering. As I said, you can depose Greyjoys, or the better idea would be to create another title equal to Lord of Iron Island. Then, we will split the Iron Islands in half, creating infighting among them. While they are fighting each other, they can't fight or raid us. Observing my meticulous preparation, Robert inquired with a measure of curiosity. If you planned this much, you must have a house in mind, which one of the Iron Island houses would even dream about standing up to Greyjoy? In response, I presented my criteria for the ideal candidate. The new leader house needs to fulfill two conditions. First, is there any house ambitious enough to stand up against Greyjoys and fight against them for power? There are 4 houses that satisfy this condition, but among them, realistically, only 2 of them are strong enough to stand up to Greyjoys. The second condition is they need to be against the old ways. That leaves us only with House Harlaw. I would say half of Iron Island doesn't care about the old ways if they can hold onto their powers or grow them. I slowly approached the map of the Iron Islands, using it as a visual aid for my strategic division plan. Lord Tully voiced his concerns about the potential aftermath. This would turn the islands into a hot mess. I reiterated the intent behind my proposal, clarifying its purpose. Again, that is the point of this plan, creating instability in the region. For the years to come, it will cause Iron Island to fight each other even if Harlaw or Greyjoy can consolidate their power and hold all of the islands. It would take them more years to prepare for rebelling. With the implementation of this plan, wet rats would kill each other rather than our innocent people. Robert's gaze shifted to Ned, silently seeking his input, while Tywin listened attentively, withholding his comments. Ned weighed in on the matter. I can't say I like using this plan, but I wouldn't mind giving Bear Island and coastal towns a few years of peace. My projections concerning the future consequences of this plan were explicit. If Harlaws come out on top after these power struggles, the raiding culture of the Iron Island would slowly diminish, but if the winner is Greyjoy, I predict they would rebel at first sight of weakness from the Iron Throne. It might take 10 or 20 years, but they will definitely rebel. Following the deliberations, Robert's proclamation designated Roderick Harlaw as the paramount of the seas and rivers, effectively granting him control over half of the Iron Islands due to House Greyjoy's treachery. The reaction was mixed among the Iron Island houses. While many voiced their disagreement, the loyalists of House Harlaw perceived this as a chance to ascend and rally around their new leader. The success of the plan exceeded my expectations. Notably, even during the celebratory festivities held to mark Roderick Harlaw's new title, an incident occurred. Harlan Stonetree, son of Lord Stonetree, engaged in a deadly confrontation, slaying Lord Botley's son Balan Boltley. The trigger was Balan's branding of Lord Harlaw as a usurper. With the conclusion of these events, the armies commenced their withdrawal to the mainland, carrying their spoils with them. However, Robert's intentions were far from allowing us to return to our homes immediately. He declared a grand victory tourney to be held at Lannisport, planning to expend a substantial portion of the acquired wealth, a staggering 200,000 gold dragons. This upcoming tourney comprised 3 main competitions: joust, melee, and archery. The rewards for the winners were substantial. The victor of the joust would garner 35,000 gold dragons for the first place, 10,000 gold dragons for the second, and 2,000 gold dragons for the third. Similarly, the melee offered rewards of 30,000 gold dragons for the first place, 7,000 gold dragons for the second, and 2,000 gold dragons for the third. The archery event included a prize of 15,000 gold dragons for the first place, 5,000 gold dragons for the second, and 2,000 gold dragons for the third. The total expenditure on rewards surpassed 100,000 gold dragons, leaving the remaining funds for the festivities. My enthusiasm for the tourney knew no bounds. Robert's lavish generosity promised a substantial fortune for the skilled participants. With unwavering confidence, I was convinced that victory in archery was within my grasp, and I held optimistic aspirations for the joust as well. However, the melee posed a challenge, especially if esteemed competitors like Jaime or Sir Selmy were to enter. Regardless, the prospect of clashing with such revered knights exhilarated me to no end. As preparations progressed, the assembled knights, each a notable figure in their own right, set the stage for the impending tourney. The final touches took a mere 4 days, culminating in the readiness of the event's venue just outside Lanny Sport. My own journey in the joust was slated to begin in the first round, where I would face none other than Lord Royce. Although I had hoped to ride Sith, my formidable companion, I anticipated the organizers' decision not to allow it. This, however, didn't dissuade me from attempting to try. Siths had exceptional attributes, far surpassing those of an ordinary horse. Sith's average speed reached an impressive 35, surpassing the typical 30 of a horse. With her mana-infused bursts, her speed reached to an astounding 85, though it was crucial to note that this pertained to galloping speed rather than her attack pace. Beyond this, her immense strength set her apart, with a formidable 40 in comparison to a horse's 20 to 25. The magnitude of her power enabled feats such as easily crushing an armored opponent or severing a man's head with a single swipe of her colossal claws. On the morrow, the tourney would be starting, and the anticipation of the commencement was palpable. Amidst the fervor, Lord Frey, a figure renowned for his cunning, emerged on the scene. He bowed before the king, seeking forgiveness for his delayed actions. Responding to his calculated tardiness, Robert bestowed upon him the moniker of the late Lord Frey. This epithet, delivered with a mix of jest and reproach, underscored Lord Frey's crafty maneuvers that aimed to minimize his losses while other Riverland lords bore the brunt of Tully's lackluster leadership. Chapter 153. 290 AC. POVMC. Upon mounting my horse, I fixed my gaze on Lord Royce positioned at the distant end of the jousting arena. Lord Royce presented a striking figure astride his horse, stationed at the far expanse of the jousting arena. His ancient bronze armor, edged with intricate and faded runes, gleamed softly in the sunlight, a testament to generations past. His demeanor exuded a blend of regal pride and confidence, a man well versed in command and accustomed to the attention of his peers. As he adjusted his helmet, his movements carried an air of ceremonial importance, a display of his preparedness for the impending joust. The slight inclination of his head and the composed yet scrutinizing gaze he cast across the field signaled a competitor aware of the challenge ahead, poised to uphold the honor of his house with a measure of pomp and prestige. I turned my attention to the scene of the arena. It was a great contrast. Nobles luxuriated in the opulent stands on my left, enjoying the comfort of cushioned chairs and the relief of shade. Their needs were catered to with offerings of wine and fruits by diligent servants. In stark opposition, the commoners occupied the rudimentary wooden stands to the right, exposed to the unrelenting sun. Yet, their unbridled enthusiasm radiated through their eager expressions, undeterred by the harsh conditions. Then, I turned my attention to Lord Royce's armor. At first glance, the armor appeared bereft of any magical aura. But after a prolonged and careful look, faint vestiges of magic emerged, suggesting either dormancy or the gradual erosion of its power over time. The prospect of unraveling this mystery tugged at my curiosity, compelling me to delve deeper. Thus, I proposed. Lord Royce, shall we inject a touch of excitement into this match? My words seemed to startle Lord Royce momentarily, yet his demeanor belied his reluctance to appear timorous. Pray tell, what do you have in mind? I would wager my sword, Red Rain. A hushed stillness swept over the arena in response to my proclamation, a silence so profound that the mere drop of a pin could be discerned. Conversations ceased as the entire assembly pivoted their attention to our exchange. I fear I lack an item of comparable worth, such as a Valyrian sword. Might we entertain the idea of a monetary wager? Lord Royce ventured. As I am a practitioner of the old god's faith, you possess an item of nearly equivalent significance. Though others might perceive it as trivial, its relevance resonates deeply with our beliefs. I invite you to contemplate wagering your bronze armor. Lord Royce's features contorted with a flicker of irritation. How dare you suggest I wager my family's cherished heirloom? But, Lord Royce, do you not profess unwavering allegiance to the Seven? Once more caught off guard, his reply carried an air of assertion. Indeed, that I do. Then why, might I ask, don the very armor that invokes the old god's protection? A fleeting expression of bewilderment passed over him. What do you imply? I seek no favor from the realms of falsehood, nor shall I ever. Lord Royce, I implore you to weigh your words carefully when discussing matters of the old gods. Just as I hold your convictions in esteem, I anticipate a comparable courtesy. Are you well acquainted with the inscriptions etched onto your armor? And you, as a commoner, possess such knowledge. The origins of my birth do not preclude my capacity for learning. Though I might not decode all the runes, I recognize those encircling your neck. They convey, "May the old gods safeguard the Bronze Kings." Do you not perceive what that means? As a devotee of the Seven, you forfeit the privilege of adorning armor consecrated by the old gods. I redirected my attention toward the septon of Lanny Sport. Septon, does it comport with the tenets of the Seven to garb oneself in such an armor? The septon's reluctance to respond was palpable. In response, I persisted. The Seven are vigilant observers of our deeds, Septon. Do you intend to withhold your verdict? He conceded begrudgingly, indeed, donning such armor borders on sacrilege. A cacophony of voices surged forth, presenting me with the opportune juncture to continue. Lord Royce, while your armor might carry familial legacy, the adherents of the old gods posit that you and your forebears renounced the right to wear it upon embracing the Andal's faith and adopting the Seven. Lord Royce's retort rang with an undercurrent of anger. How dare a commoner assail the honor of a noble? A mere knight such as you, consumed by arrogance that transcends your station. I harbor no presumption to assail the dignity of a noble. If I am but a humble knight, then why should a superior Vale Knight feel compelled to oppose a wager? It presents you with an opportunity to showcase the mettle of Vale Knights against an ostensibly inferior commoner. It seems you stand in need of a lesson, young man, and I shall oblige with acceptance of the wager. With his helmet lowered, Lord Royce took his stance. I love it when they lose their cool upon a little bit of nudging. The ensuing contest was unlikely to be marked by friendship, rather, I aimed to cultivate an atmosphere of trepidation. Accepting the proffered lance from Keegan, I poised myself for the imminent clash. Jousting was a familiar terrain for me since I dabbled in a bit, and I was amazed at how easy it was. Of course, the augmented attributes, such as high reflexes bestowed upon me by my bond, helped a lot. Augmented reflexes and enhanced flexibility endowed me with a substantial upper hand against most competitors. Predicaments arose only when confronted by adversaries boasting significantly superior physical prowess. In such instances, however, a reservoir of strategic maneuvers remained at my disposal. This was nothing but play fighting that didn't show any real indication of how powerful someone was. As Lord Royce and I hurtled toward each other, our steeds galloping with fervor, my heightened reflexes transcended conventional limits. This augmentation enabled me to preemptively predict the trajectory of his lance and align my position for its deflection. Concurrently, I executed a retaliatory maneuver aimed at his arm, a calibrated blow intended to administer pain rather than unhorsing. The objective was not beating him but a calculated imposition of fear. This dynamic unfolded across a sequence of clashes. By the seventh such exchange, Lord Royce lifted his visor, bespeaking a need for water. Our gazes collided, and I detected traces of trepidation in his eyes. The realization that I was toying with him was beginning to dawn upon him. If I needed, I could apply a mantle of protective magic woven under my armor and an overlay of healing magic to repair the damage from the blunt force impact. But I didn't even need that. I was able to read him like an open book and always moved out of the way at the last second, making his hit nothing more than a graze. 4 additional encounters transpired along comparable lines, culminating in Lord Royce's eyes beseeching surrender. He grappled with a pivotal decision whether to uphold his pride or concede with grace. By the 12th clash, his endurance reached its threshold, he capitulated, collapsing to the ground, gasping for air. Guiding my horse closer, I remarked with a loud voice. You've magnificently exemplified the valor and prowess of Vale Knights. I am, quite literally, left trembling in fear and admiration of your superiority. You really showed me who was the superior one. With an imperious smirk, I declared, I await the delivery of my armor to my tent within the hour. Such audacious comportment would be reserved for no northern lord. I had resolved to avoid cultivating hostility within the north, unless circumstances necessitated otherwise. However, my approach to the Vale differed, stemming from distinct strategic motives I didn't need allies in the Vale. Raising my fractured lance aloft, I proclaimed. For the glory of the North and the old gods. Expressions of satisfaction played upon the countenances of the northern lords, while our troops erupted into frenzied chants bearing my name. Amidst the euphoria, a solitary somber visage was upheld by Lord Stark, a harbinger of the imminent lecture that awaited me. Chapter 154 290 AC. POVMC. As I settled into the tent, a short span of time passed before Lord Stark's presence was announced by the rustle of the entrance. His expression carried a mix of irritation and anger, his demeanor reflecting his sentiments. It seems that just when I believe you might be learning some level of decorum and reason, you go out of your way to demonstrate the opposite. Why did you choose to insult him so blatantly? Have you not grasped the concept that such behavior toward a noble is unacceptable? My response came in a measured tone, respectful yet firm. I understand the implications, my lord. And may I remind you, I am already considered a noble. King Robert, the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, recognized my role as the hero of the North, and during the post-war festivities, he made it clear that he intends to grant me nobility following the conclusion of this tournament. Lord Stark's annoyance led him to sink into a chair with an audible sigh. While that might be true, why jeopardize our relationship with the Vale and the Royces over a piece of armor that holds little value? Gently, I elaborated. The armor's significance extends beyond its material worth. Though I am intrigued by its magical attributes, my main reason for the provocation was young Royce's blatant disregard for our faith. While I may not be a devout believer myself, I cannot tolerate such insults to our beliefs and traditions. My lord, bear in mind that the rest of Westeros may wear friendly faces, but their true thoughts about us are far from kind. I know they don't understand us, but they wouldn't be mannerless. The usual derogatory terms: tree-hugging barbarians, brutes, mannerless dogs. These are the opinions they secretly hold of us. While they appreciate our strength in times of conflict, the moment peace is restored, they revert to their customary opinions. I may wield the power to vanquish thousands, but my objective is to channel that strength into the betterment of the North. To achieve that, they must acknowledge me as more than just their equal. In this tournament, I intend to overcome anyone who dares challenge me. I aspire to forge a legend. Lord Stark's composed countenance did not mask his recognition of the greater political dynamics at play. Despite his connections to the King and the Hand, he was not ignorant of the pervasive sentiments toward the North. Continuing, I asserted, my actions were not merely an outlet for frustration. They are part of a larger scheme. I span a web so big that it will become clearer years later. Know that everything I undertake is with the ultimate goal of advancing and empowering the North. Naturally, I refrained from divulging my intention to rally the mountain clans against the Vale. Such a strategy contradicted his rigid code of honor. While the Vale's terrain posed a challenge, uniting the clans under a single banner and fomenting a crusade against the Vale was a covered objective. The groundwork had been established, but its fruition would demand years of careful planning and execution. Turning to my decision about the heirloom armor, I clarified, yes, I plan to accept the heirloom armor. After conducting my examinations, I might choose to return it. My interest lies in studying it and deepening my understanding of arcane knowledge. Perplexity edged Lord Stark's features. Arcane knowledge? Can you elaborate? It's the pursuit of magic in its purest form, devoid of elemental or dark attributes. Our manipulation of mana or arcana often transforms it into elemental or dark magic. Lord Stark rubbed his temples, struggling to absorb the complexities. I confess, this is rather baffling. Another sigh escaped him, and he addressed me with weariness. Being a teenager is a challenge in itself, but your circumstances complicate matters further. Your power to eliminate thousands demands restraint. You cannot rely solely on brute force. I responded earnestly, my lord, my actions toward Lord Royce weren't driven solely by the desire to humiliate him. There are broader implications at play, although it's not yet time to unveil them. Rest assured, my every endeavor is aimed at the betterment and empowerment of the North. Unspoken truths hung between us, and Lord Stark's understanding of the political landscape facilitated a measure of comprehension, even if complete revelation remained elusive. The joust progressed to the second round, pitting me against Jason Mullister, a man revered for his courage and honor. Unlike my approach with Lord Royce, I had no intention of humiliating Mullister, given his respectful conduct and demeanor. As we took our positions, Mullister removed his helmet, placing a fist over his heart in a salute. I mirrored the gesture, appreciating his dignified bearing. Lord Mullister's brown hair was streaked with white, yet his blue eyes retained their formidable intensity. His indigo armor featured silver accents, and his helmet bore the emblem of an eagle, the embodiment of his chivalry and sigil. The clash of our charge reverberated through the arena, and my lance met Mullister's shield, resulting in the shattering of mine. His counter-strike landed on my right shoulder, but a quick twist allowed me to avoid the full impact, leaving his lance intact. Mollister managed to maintain his seat, preventing an unhorsing. The crowd's roar filled the air, resonating with exhilaration. I retrieved a fresh lance, preparing for another charge. This time, my aim was his head, yet he deftly shifted aside, eluding my strike. Simultaneously, I deflected his attack with my shield. His skill was evident, offering a challenge that demanded my full attention. However, on our third pass, I succeeded in striking his chest squarely, unseating him from his horse. I swiftly dismounted and extended my hand to assist him. Accepting my gesture, he rose, and together we raised our hands in a celebratory gesture, drawing cheers from the spectators. I saluted him, my fist over my heart, and commended. "A splendid bout, Lord Mollister. An honor indeed." Mollister opened his helmet and, with a smile gracing his face, said, "The honor is mine, Sword of Winter. Until the melee, then." Returning the salute, he turned to the king, saluted him, and departed the arena. My admiration for him deepened. As the joust progressed, Yoram Mormont emerged victorious over Lyle Strongbow Craig Hall, Jaime Lannister defeated Lord Went, and Hostine Frey prevailed against Boros Blount, the sixth son of the late Lord Valder Frey. The defeat of Boros Blount determined my next adversary. The transition from the jousting arena to the feasting hall was marked by a palpable shift in atmosphere. The excitement of competition yielded to the allure of camaraderie, as the participants exchanged their armor for festive attire, a visual symbol of their dual roles as warriors and celebrants. Inside the great hall, the grandeur of the occasion was reflected in the tapestries adorning the walls, depicting the storied history of House Lannister. Seated at the head of the hall, King Robert's jovial laughter resonated once more, his capacity for mirth and enjoyment remained unabated. The long tables, laden with a cornucopia of culinary delights, awaited the arrival of the guests. The rich aroma of roasted meats, hearty stews, and fresh baked breads enveloped the space, whetting appetites and kindling a sense of eager anticipation. Conversations flowed freely, bridging gaps of familiarity and heralding the formation of new connections. The resonance of clinking goblets, accompanied by the exchange of toasts and laughter, underscored the conviviality that defined the feast. As the alcohol flowed over some of the tables, fists started to talk with the help of liquid courage. While the fervor of the jousting competition may have subsided for the day, the evening's festivities held their own allure. Noble lords and ladies, renowned knights, and distinguished guests shared in the camaraderie that only such gatherings could foster. The next chapter of the joust awaited on the morrow, yet for now, Casterly Rock's Great Hall stood as the heart of revelry, a place where tradition and celebration converged. Chapter 155. 290 AC. POVMC. The feast was in full swing, the hall alive with the symphony of laughter and clinking goblets. Amidst the revelry, Lord Royce's icy glares bore into me, a testament to his disgruntlement at our contest. Yet, he wasn't entirely a sour loser, he had, after all, delivered the bronze armor. If my hunch was correct, and its magical properties were indeed spent, I pondered returning it after a few months of thorough examination. But even if I didn't, they had more than one bronze armor. Amid my contemplation, the king's booming voice shattered my reverie. "Sir Drazzle, fetch a goblet and show these delicate flowers how a true man handles his drink." Thanks to my poison resistance, alcohol held little threat to me. I could imbibe like a sponge, though it did result in frequent nocturnal trips to the chamber pot. As I drained my seventh goblet, King Robert burst into hearty laughter. "You men are a sorry sight. Can't even outdrink this lad or beat him with a sword." Robert's words seemed to prick at the Kingslayer's pride, for he couldn't stomach the implication. He stepped forward, an arrogant smirk etched upon his face. "My king, we can't truly assess his swordsmanship until the melee." Robert, ever the instigator, pressed further. "Are you implying you'd best him in the melee?" Jaime's smirk deepened as he retorted, "I don't fear a clash with him. Even if he bears the title of a knight, he's merely an upstart who's yet to face anyone of significance." Jory Castle interjected, his voice a challenge. "He bested Harris Harlaw, Victarion Greyjoy, and let's not forget he was the one who breached the main gate." Jaime was quick to dismiss, a disdainful twist to his lips. Harris Harlaw was hardly more than a middling knight. As for Victarion, I heard his men dragged him from the fray before the battle was even over. The northern knights and nobles bristled at Jaime's words, their irritation palpable. However, none dared voice their displeasure until Jory stood, hurling his goblet to the floor at Jaime's feet. Are you attempting to belittle the achievements of Northern Knights? At that moment, I clapped my hands with such force that it resonated like thunder, jolting the hall into silence. All eyes were on me as I spoke, my voice cutting through the tension. Sir Castle, we are the Knights of the North. We don't deride one another's accomplishments at a drinking table, that's a pastime better suited for idle men. And as for you, Sir Kingslayer, know this, alcohol and swords are a dangerous mix. We're without our blades now, or I'd have challenged you to a duel on the spot. Jaime couldn't resist interjecting, a smirk of his own in place. At this moment, I wouldn't entertain it. People might gossip that I defeated you while you were inebriated. King Robert shifted his attention to Ned Stark, his curiosity piqued. What are your men calling this boy? They've bestowed him with a few titles. Devout believers of the old gods refer to him as Sword of the Old Gods. Knights and soldiers of Winterfell have dubbed him Sword of Winter, and some commoners know him as the Bane. Robert mused for a moment before emitting a resounding belch. Sword of Winter sounds fitting. I'm inclined to allow it. Before the melee commences, Kingslayer and Sword of Winter shall engage in a friendly duel. A knight ought to speak with his sword, not his tongue. He turned to both of us, seeking our affirmation. Do you accept? I accept, I replied without hesitation. I accept, Jaime begrudgingly conceded. Amidst this exchange, Lord Tywin remained a silent observer, his demeanour unchanged. He hadn't uttered a word or made a move throughout the interactions, simply sipping his wine in quiet contemplation. POV third person. In the privacy of Lord Tywin Lannister's chambers, a tense atmosphere hung heavy. The grandeur of the room contrasted starkly with the palpable unease between father and son. The golden glint of Jaime's hair was dimmed by the weight of his father's gaze as it bore into him. Across the expanse of Tywin's imposing desk lay an array of meticulously organized papers. With a tone as unyielding as steel, Tywin's voice sliced through the air, that was an utterly thoughtless move. You needn't have ignited the ire of the northern lords and knights by belittling their celebrated hero. Jaime, typically overflowing with bravado, found himself reduced to a state of unease in front of his father's ruthless eyes. He hesitated for a brief moment before responding, his arrogance veiling his words. If the North has deemed a mere 16-name-day-old worthy of hero worship, it is a testament to their skewed judgment. Strip away his beast, and he's nothing but a mediocre boy. Tywin's gaze remained unswerving, his words dripping with frosty disdain. Do you possess any factual knowledge of his accomplishments, or are your judgments founded solely upon the ramblings of inebriated tongues? Jaime's reply carried an undertone of skepticism. All I've encountered is grandiloquent boasting. He's supposedly vanquished a handful of inconsequential foes with his coterie of pets, and suddenly, he's hailed as an unparalleled champion. Jealousy and envy are emotions that serve no purpose, especially for a Lannister. Should you approach him with such a dismissive mindset, you're inviting a downfall of your own making. Jaime found himself caught in a moment of incredulity. His father's praise for the boy was an unfamiliar and puzzling note. He never praises someone, Jaime thought. He clenched his fists, feeling the pressure until his knuckles turned white, struggling to find words as Tywin's oration continued to unfold. Though he may bear base lineage, his prowess is undeniable. With a controlled gesture, Tywin slid a stack of papers across the desk. Hesitant fingers grasped the reports, and Jaime's eyes scanned the meticulous contents. An intricate tapestry of intelligence on Air Murdrazzle revealed itself. He's quelled a multitude of bandits and safeguarded coastal towns against Ironborn aggression with nothing but his beasts. The minimal loss toll the North bore is, in large part, due to his strategic acumen and precision in archery. Consider this: could you, alone, combat a horde of Ironborn using only a bow? Witnesses attest that he's felled scores with bow and arrow and perhaps a little help from his monster. What remains undeniable is that he's no ordinary youth, he's a harbinger of death, an enigmatic force. More papers sailed through the air, a cascade of evidence in Tywin's argument. The next time you engage, ensure you comprehend precisely the caliber of your opponent. I shall brook no errors born from your arrogance. While I may not gauge his prowess with a blade, it is conceivable that his undeveloped body might be ill-suited for physical contest. However, underestimation may well be the catalyst for your undoing. No further words were needed. The intensity of Tywin's chilling gaze conveyed volumes, leaving the room to resound with silence. The charged atmosphere hung in the air, eventually punctuated by the dismissive sweep of Tywin's hand. I shall entertain no outcome that tarnishes the name of our family. Chapter 156. 290 AC. POVMC. In the midst of the lively tournament atmosphere, I found myself watching with keen interest as Lord Yoram Mormont triumphed over Jaime Lannister in a series of clashes. The jousting spectacle was entertaining, but deep down, I knew that jousting was merely a display of different skills rather than the true measure of a fighter's prowess. As the bards often sang, it was a sport, not a real battle. Although talent played a role in it, the skills required for jousting were not always directly indicative of a fighter's abilities in actual combat. This became especially clear as Yoram Mormont emerged victorious, defying the usual expectations. Jaime rose from the ground, dusting himself off and retrieving his helmet. Seizing the opportunity, I stood up from my seat behind Lord Stark and let out a cheer before speaking, my words laced with playful sarcasm, a magnificent example of falling off a horse indeed. The invincible knight, as the bards say. Huzzah! Jaime's frustration was evident as he angrily flung his helmet into the mud and stormed off the arena. Encouraged by the spectacle, I decided to approach Lord Tywin Lannister. After a respectful bow, I addressed him, my tone respectful but firm. I hold no grievances with your son, my lord. However, I do not back down from a challenge. He picked a fight, and he will face the consequences. I hope this doesn't offend you. Lord Tywin responded, his tone calculated, my son may be 35 name days old, but he still displays the recklessness of a young knight. This is a matter between two knights and will be resolved as such. Amidst the approval of the surrounding lords, I sensed that Lord Tywin's words held a hidden layer of deception. It was clear that he was not as unfazed as he pretended to be. My victory over his son would surely sow seeds of resentment despite his outward appearance of acceptance. While Lord Tywin held immense wealth, his power held little sway in the north. I was determined to leave a mark in the north and earn my place among its nobility, regardless of his influence. Taking my position back in the arena, my gaze fixed on Hosteen Frey, my next opponent. The burly man with a square face and formidable stature prepared himself for the contest. While most Freys were known for their less than admirable reputation, Hosteen's robust build and features set him apart. As he donned his helmet with twin towers on its top, we charged at each other, the clash of our lances resonating through the air. I quickly devised a strategy, feigning a higher aim and then adjusting my lance's trajectory at the last moment to strike his shield. It worked, and he was unseated with surprising ease. In the final round, I faced none other than Sir Yoram Mormont, who had been knighted by the king just after the battle. His decision to accept the knighthood from the Seven puzzled me, given the northern preference for the old gods. Regardless, his stature as a northern lord added another layer of significance to our impending duel. As we readied ourselves, Yora returned to the arena with a handkerchief bearing the crest of House Hightower tied to his lance. Linus Hightower's favour had been bestowed upon him, making it clear who he intended to honour as the Queen of Love and Beauty. It struck me as a peculiar choice, considering the stark contrast of beliefs between the North and the faith of the Seven. Nevertheless, the favour represented a connection between them that I couldn't ignore. Our joust commenced, and I sensed Yora's frustration beneath his composed exterior. Engaging in 6 clashes, I wanted to avoid an immediate victory to maintain the illusion of a fair fight. So, not to hurt his pride. At the 7th clash, I skillfully unseated him, extending a hand to help him up. A good fight, Sir Yora, I acknowledged. His disappointment was palpable, but he gracefully raised my hand and proclaimed, indeed, it was. Our champion, Sir Aemir Drazzle. I chose not to crown anyone as the Queen of Love and Beauty, kneeling before the king to accept my award. With no retinue of my own, I entrusted the gold to Lord Stark for safekeeping. The days continued with feasting and celebration, leading up to the final duel against Jaime. This time, the melee was designed uniquely, commencing with our duel as part of the larger event. As a result, the loser of our duel would be eliminated from the melee. I focused my efforts on enhancing my physical abilities before facing Jaime, aware that his superior strength and speed gave him an advantage. Jaime's approach was aggressive, attempting to strike at my legs with a slash. I countered his attacks with agile movements, stepping back to evade his blows. His determination grew, and he resorted to more forceful tactics, including a shield bash. Using my heightened reflexes and flexibility, I managed to dodge and block his continuous assaults effectively. Although I was on the defensive for most of the duel, I chose not to employ my spells to their full extent, saving my true abilities for a later time. Because I had only one opportunity since I was not going to kill him, he would realize something was wrong if I used many spells. At the same time, I wanted to glean more insights from this fight. Jaime's overconfidence led him to underestimate my capabilities, assuming I would be unable to counter his attacks effectively. The clash between us continued since my reflexes and flexibility were almost beyond human, my defensive maneuvers bewildering Jaime. He began to rely on sheer physicality, attempting shield bashes and charges in his frustration. I allowed him to push me backward while strategically maintaining my balance. Observing his growing frustration, I knew that timing was crucial for my next move. In the midst of the battle, I seized a brief opportunity. Taking advantage of his momentary lapse, I executed a swift maneuver that dived right under his sword while blocking him with my sword and caught him off guard. This annoyed him. The strike landed, but it was not enough to defeat him. He wasn't more talented than me, but physically, he had superiority. As the duel progressed, Jaime's arrogance and frustration became more pronounced, and he taunted me. "Did you swallow your tongue? Aren't you going to regale us with tales of the invincible Northern Knights?" Chapter 157. 290 AC. POV Third Person. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the sprawling tournament grounds of Lanny Sport. The air was charged with anticipation, a palpable energy that crackled among the assembled spectators and participants. Banners of various noble houses fluttered in the breeze, lending a colorful backdrop to the festivities. It was a grand occasion, a convergence of skill and pageantry that only a tourney of this scale could offer. Amid the eager crowd, the duel between R.O.B and Jaime Lannister was well underway, a clash of a young knight and hero of the North, Sword of Winter, and the infamous King Slayer, Jaime Lannister, that had captivated the attention of all who bore witness. Their swords clashed with a resounding ring, each strike a testament to their mastery of the blade. The dance of combat played out before the enthralled audience, each movement a calculated maneuver aimed at gaining an advantage. R.O.B's perspective on the battle shifted as if he had unlocked a heightened state of awareness. The ebb and flow of the duel seemed to unfold before him in slow motion, his anticipation allowing him to predict Jaime's every move before it materialized. His 10-year dedication to sword training, combined with his 5x skill multiplier, had transformed him into a force to be reckoned with, a paragon of mastery that bordered on the level of Sir Barristan Selmy, a renowned knight of Westeros. The clash continued, a whirlwind of steel and determination that resonated throughout the arena. The spectators watched with bated breath, utterly captivated by the display of skill and strategy. It was a battle of wits as much as a physical contest, a duel that transcended the confines of the tournament ground. As the duel progressed, the combatants' contrasting styles became apparent. Jaime Lannister fought with an aggressive ferocity, his strikes powerful and relentless. Yet R.O.B's finesse and calculated approach allowed him to deflect each blow with precision. It was a dance of strength and technique, a symphony of clashes that echoed through the air. The sun's rays gleamed upon their blades as they locked in another exchange, the intensity of their focus apparent in the furrowed brows and clenched jaws. R.O.B's strategy was clear: to exploit his opponent's openings and turn them into opportunities. With a quick parry, he maneuvered Jaime into a momentary imbalance and swiftly capitalized on the advantage. Using his mastery of both swordsmanship and magic, R.O.B executed a spell with deft precision. Formotigan the earth obeyed his command, a slight bump forming beneath Jaime's pivot foot. The King Slayer stumbled, and in the split second of vulnerability, R.O.B seized the initiative. His blade whirled through the air, poised to strike. Yet Jaime's experience came to his aid, he twisted his body, rolling back and creating distance to regain his footing. However, R.O.B was relentless. Closing the distance once more, he bashed Jaime with his shield, using the force of his advantage to unbalance him. The King Slayer's resilience was evident as he countered, relying on his formidable strength. Their clash of arms and strategy was a dance that had the crowd on the edge of their seats. Jaime's breathing grew heavy as the duel wore on, fatigue beginning to take its toll. Meanwhile, R.O.B remained poised and calculated, his stamina unwavering, thanks to his stamina buff. The crowd could sense the shift in momentum, the once dominant King Slayer now finding himself at a disadvantage. Unfazed by his opponent's tactics, R.O.B adapted. R.O.B unleashed a series of strikes aimed at disorienting his opponent. He changed his grip to a reverse grip, and the pommel of his blade hammered Jaime's helmet, causing him to stagger. The audience roared with each clash, their excitement building with the ebb and flow of the battle. It was a spectacle that transcended mere combat, a display of skill and strategy that showcased the essence of their characters. As the duel reached its zenith, R.O.B's calculated maneuvers led him to a defining moment. An opening emerged, and he seized it with precision, parrying past Jaime's sword and placing his own blade at the Kingslayer's throat. The battle was won through strategy, precision, and a deep understanding of the art of combat. The arena erupted into cheers and applause, a chorus of appreciation for the skill and determination on display. Ermer's victory was met with admiration from all corners, a testament to his mastery of the blade and his ability to outmaneuver even the most formidable opponents. And so, under the sun's warm embrace and amidst the backdrop of banners and cheering crowds, Ermer stood victorious. He gazed out at the faces before him, the realm's narrative forever altered by the clash of swords that had unfolded. In the annals of Westerosi history, the duel between Ermer and Jaime Lannister would forever be remembered as a moment that embodied the essence of the tourney, a collision of legends that left an indelible mark on the realm's tapestry. Jaime's sword clattered to the ground, a clear admission of defeat. Without awaiting any formal announcement, he strode away from the arena, his frustration palpable. Amidst the aftermath of the duel, the reverberations of Robert Baratheon's hearty laughter resounded in the air. The king's voice carried above the din, addressing Ermer with a nod of approval. "Let him go. It was a magnificent duel, Sir Drazzle. Let's not detain the Lord and Knight of the Realm any longer. Take your place now for the melee." Ermer's squire, Keegan, arrived with his horse and crescent halberd. Mounting gracefully, Ermer joined the ranks of his fellow warriors in anticipation of the upcoming 15 versus 15 melees. His teammates were an imposing assembly of formidable individuals, including Jason Mallister, Beric Dondarrion, Brynden Blackfish Tully, Sandor the Hound Clegane, Ricard Karstark, and Roderick the Ruin Forester. The remaining combatants on his side bore the distinctive crests of the Reach and the Vale, their allegiances clear even as their identities remained unknown. Facing them were 14 adversaries, their number diminished by Jaime's withdrawal. The opposing team featured warriors of renown such as Gregor the Mountain Clegane, Jon Royce, Yoram Mormont, Hosteen, and Ryman Frey, Lyle Craig Hall, Boros Blount, and Thuras of Myr. As the melee commenced, the tourney ground transformed into a battleground, each side charging towards the other with an audible blast of horns. The initial moments saw Thuras of Myr invoking green flames on his sword, a sight that spooked some horses and led to a series of falls. The chaos of the charge claimed several riders from Ermer's side, prompting swift intervention from him. Reacting swiftly, Ermer cast Udrest's command animal, pacifying his own horse in the face of the eerie flames. Unfazed, he directed his steed towards Thuras. A clash between halberd and shield ensued, with Thuras struggling to maintain his equilibrium before tumbling from his mount. When he regained his footing, Ermer's halberd struck the helm, a calculated blow that incapacitated Thuras without lethal intent. Ermer's commitment to avoiding fatalities in the melee was evident, a testament to his determination to prevent unnecessary harm during this mock battle. Surveying the field, Ermer recognized the tide turning against his side. The knights, though engaged in a simulated conflict, still sought out one-on-one duels where honor could be upheld. Ermer's strategic use of Udrest's command animal on the opposing team's horses had slowed their advance, unsettling their ranks. The melee unfolded with frenzied energy, alliances, and rivalries converging in a symphony of clashing steel. Lord Mallister faced Jon Royce, the Hound, and Ricard Karstark, trying to hold off the mountain contended with Blackfish. Beric Dondarrion and Blackfish engaged in combat with Yoram Mormont and Lyle Craig Hall. Roderick Forrester squared off against Boros Blount, while Ermer found himself in a battle of his own. As he fended off the advances of the two Frey brothers, Ryman and Hosteen, Ermer's halberd granted him a strategic advantage. Despite Ryman's lance finding its mark on Ermer's leg, the seasoned warrior used the moment to launch a counterattack. A forceful strike against Ryman's shoulder sent him sprawling, and Ermer pivoted his attention to Hosteen. The clash intensified as Hosteen wielded his battle axe against Ermer's defenses. The impact reverberated through Ermer's shield arm, and the strain on his right side was palpable. In a fluid motion, he transitioned to his sword, seizing an opportune moment to thrust it into Hosteen's blind spot, a gap created by his raised shield. The blade found its mark, embedding in Hosteen's leg with a swift, calculated movement. The melee continued in full force as the Frey brother fell off his horse. Chapter 158. 290 AC. POVMC. The clash of steel resounded on the field, the sun's rays glinting off the armored combatants as they battled for glory. I struck one more Frey, they were like weeds, no end to them. The chainmail on his leg offered little protection against the might of Red Rain, and he winced as the sword pierced his leg. The pain forced him to momentarily lower his guard, a mistake I seized by landing a swift blow on his helmet. The helmet held firm against the strike, although it became bent and marred, it withstood the sword's penetration in a single blow. Yet, the impact had taken its toll, causing his head to snap back, and he tumbled off his horse, a grimace of pain contorting his face. I didn't allow him a moment's respite. Immediately, I invoked Aberuklo, Life Bloom, on my arm and leg, relieving the throbbing agony. Both Jousting and this fray had matching scars now. Had the battle unfolded under the shroud of night, the faint luminescence hue emanating from beneath my armor might have betrayed the presence of my healing spell. However, under the blazing sun, the light remained obscured, thanks to the armor's gleam and the brilliance of daylight. A surge of renewal coursed through me, the final skirmishes coming to an end. Ricard Karstark lay incapacitated, courtesy of the mountain, while the hound grappled fiercely with his brother. Both warriors were dismounted, sprawled upon the ground. Amidst the grappling, the mountain overpowered the hound, rendering him unconscious. He clutched a hefty stone, poised to crush his sibling's head beneath its weight. Responding swiftly to the impending brutality, I surged forward, red rain slicing through the air to strike the mountain's helmet square on. The sword caved the helmet slightly, and he collapsed onto his back, rivulets of blood trickling from beneath his helm. No qualms plagued me, this beast was a blight upon the honor of knights. My moment of triumph was fleeting, replaced by a scene of agony as he writhed in torment, his hands grappling at his damaged helmet. The brute had yet to succumb to death's embrace. Soldiers hastened to collect the fallen combatants from the field. Amidst the debris, Lord Mollister, Blackfish, Boros Blount, and I remained standing. The melee had concluded, and our side emerged victorious. Now, it was an unstructured contest to determine the top three. Closing in on me, Blackfish's gait bore the weight of his exertions. His labored breathing showed the toll paid by the combat. His advanced age seemed to have caught up with him, despite his evident fatigue. His experience lent him a tenacity unmatched. After minutes of fervent struggle, I managed to land a blow upon his shoulder, forcing his surrender. The stamina enhancement proved its worth, yet beads of sweat adorned my brow, and the telltale twinge of fatigue crept into my arms. Meanwhile, Lord Mollister orchestrated a successful unseating of Sir Blount from his horse. As the latter clambered to his feet, Lord Mollister capitalized on the opportunity, dealing a punishing kick to his head while galloping past on his steed. Lord Mollister then unveiled his helmet, revealing a gash above his left eye, crimson streams coursing down his face. Frustration edged his features as he futilely attempted to wipe the blood away with his sleeve. I dismounted, making my way to him and suggesting, "Lord Mollister, permit the maester to tend to your eye. I would prefer to face you at your best." Disembarking from his horse, Lord Mollister approached the waiting maester. Though the wound was cleaned, the bleeding persisted, defying the maester's attempts to staunch it. "My lord, I require more time to address this wound. Just stem the bleeding for the moment." From my belt, I procured a small case, tossing it to the maester. Within lay an orange salve, unfamiliar to his eyes. "What is this?" "It's a healing salve for bruises and bleeding. It'll halt the bleeding temporarily and expedite the healing process." The maester hesitated before employing the unknown ointment. Impatience tinged Lord Mollister's voice as he intervened. "Just use the damn thing. Do you truly believe Sir Drazzle would provide something hazardous?" The salve was applied, its effect gradually diminishing the bleeding until it ceased entirely. While its potency waned with larger wounds, it efficaciously stemmed the flow from minor flesh injuries. Lord Mollister approached toward me, salve in hand, but I raised my hand and spoke with a grin. "Keep it. You might find it useful." He responded with robust laughter, declaring, "You cheeky Sir Drazzle, let's see who ends up needing it." As the clash of steel against steel reverberated, I met his first strike with the resonant ring of red rain, my Valyrian sword. Lord Mollister had superior physical strength, and I had my skill 5x skill, the experience it provided and the enchanted properties of my Valyrian weapon. Our swords danced in the air, a whirlwind of steel and determination. Each movement was a calculated step, a dance of offense and defense that echoed the ebb and flow of battle itself. Mollister's strikes were powerful and precise, his determination evident with every swing. His blade whistled through the air, aiming to exploit any opening in my defense. Yet, my years of honing my swordsmanship skills had cultivated a finesse that allowed me to anticipate his moves. My responses were fluid and precise, a symphony of calculated parries and counterattacks. The crowd watched in awe as our battle unfolded, the clash of our weapons punctuating the tension that hung in the air. Mollister's sweat-slicked brow glistened in the sunlight, his breath ragged as he pressed the attack. His strategy was clear: to test my mettle, to exploit any potential weakness. But I remained steadfast, my focus unbroken, my resolve unwavering. But the melee we had before was showing its effects. He was tired. A series of lightning-fast strikes followed, each aimed at finding a chink in my defenses. The force behind Malister's blows was undeniable, a testament to his strength. But with every strike, his breathing turned more laborious. In a seamless maneuver, I deflected Malister's strike and countered with a swift feint, causing him to momentarily lower his guard. Capitalizing on the opportunity, I lunged forward, the tip of my sword aimed at his chest. Malister's reflexes kicked in, and he managed to twist his body just in time to avoid the heavy strike. The tip of red rain bites through his armor, leaving a deep mark, a testament to the danger and sharpness of the magical sword. A murmur spread through the crowd, the tension palpable as the battle reached its climax. Malister's eyes held a mix of frustration and respect, a silent acknowledgement of the formidable adversary before him. With a renewed burst of energy, he launched a final assault. His strikes were as fast as ever, but devoid of his previous ferocity. It was in this moment of heightened intensity that my skill, experience, and the Valyrian steel converged in a decisive strike. I sidestepped Malister's oncoming blow, allowing his momentum to carry him past me. In a swift motion, I pivoted and swung red rain in a powerful arc, the blade connecting with his armor. The impact was met with a resounding crash, the force of the blow denting his armor and causing him to stumble. The crowd gasped, their collective breath held as they witnessed the culmination of our battle. Malister's sword fell from his grasp, the clang of steel against stone echoing through the arena. As he staggered, I approached him, red rain poised at his throat. "Do you yield, Lord Malister?" "I do." I helped him get up, and he raised my arm and said, "Our champion." Arm raised, we were met with a chorus of cheers from the crowd. Victorious in both joust and melee, the competitor I bested earlier secured the third-place position. Before the king, we stood as he addressed me. "Sir Drazel, you have wrought many triumphs upon this war's battlefield, demonstrating your prowess as the preeminent champion. As the realm's sovereign, I extend to you this reward." The gold I received elevated me to a wealthier status than most northern lords. My thoughts were already set on claiming victory in the archery competition, too. King Robert continued. "As pledged earlier, I, King Robert Baratheon, fist of his name, King of the Andals, the Roynars, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the realm of Westeros, decided to title Sir Aemir Drazel a noble of this realm." A sense of relief washed over me, accompanied by a tingling sensation in my stomach. One of the major barriers had been vanquished. Yet, bestowing you with noble standing alone would be an adequate recompense for all your contributions in this war. He turned to Lord Stark and queried, "Ned, do you not concur that we should also grant him some land?" He virtually shielded the northern coastline single-handedly. Before Lord Stark could respond, young Royce interjected. "My king, conferring upon him landed noble status in a single stride might prove improper. Many landless nobles have made substantial contributions to this war." Young Royce's smirk was a display of self-satisfaction, as though he believed he had achieved some cunning victory. Little did he know that his interruption meant nothing. I was going to refuse the landed title. If I allowed myself to be promoted twice in quick succession, it would undoubtedly ignite jealousy and resentment among the minor nobles who had fought alongside me in this war. The implications were clear: I would be seen as an upstart, overly ambitious, and driven by greed. Major houses would view me with skepticism, questioning my loyalty and intentions. It was a precarious position to be in, one that could undermine the alliances and camaraderie formed during the conflict. However, my inner ambition was no secret to myself. I harbored grand aspirations and a thirst for power, but it was a truth best kept hidden from prying eyes. I had learned the art of subtlety and the power of perception, using the facade of honor and humility to my advantage. By declining the offer of land, I could further solidify my reputation as a man of integrity, a warrior who valued honor above personal gain. As the crowd's cheers and the fervor of victory resonated in the air, I exchanged a knowing glance with Lord Stark. His approval was evident, his gaze reflecting an understanding of the unspoken dynamics at play. It was clear that the decision was mine to make, and I had already resolved on the path I would take. With a composed demeanor, I approached the gathered assembly, where King Robert Baratheon stood. The weight of his words held significance, as he had the power to bestow not only titles but also shape the course of my future. His voice, authoritative and commanding, cut through the air as he addressed the victorious warriors. Sir Drazel, your valor and prowess in this war have brought honor to your name and glory to the realm. As king of the 7 kingdoms, it is my privilege to see you fight. Ha ha ha! This battle maniac! The crowd fell silent, all eyes fixed on me as I stood before the king, a mixture of anticipation and curiosity hanging in the air. Gold glimmered in my palm, a tangible symbol of recognition and reward. The weight of the moment was undeniable, a crossroads that could define my legacy. Today, King Robert continued, his words carrying the weight of his authority, he pulled his sword and put it on my shoulder. I declare Sir Aylmer Drazel noble of the realm. The words resounded, and a wave of emotion surged within me. It was a testament to my dedication, my sacrifices, and my unwavering commitment. Yet, even as I received the title of a noble, I knew I had to make a choice now. To accept a land from the king or to refuse it. Of course, this wasn't even a choice for me. I had my own plans. Chapter 159. 290 AC. POV third person. My king, please bestow this honor onto other houses. I have already enjoyed your great generosity in establishing my house. I will make more contributions to the north to deserve owning land. Thanks to the blessing of the old gods, I have become one of the protectors of the north, Aylmer earnestly implored, his words carrying a sense of humility and duty. Brave and humble, Ned, you are one lucky wolf, King Robert replied with a hearty laughter, acknowledging Aylmer's modesty. Ned Stark returned the laughter with a modest smile, his uneasiness fading as he found common ground with the king's sentiments. Robert Baratheon, known for his jovial demeanor and love of wine, took a deep sip from his goblet, the rich red liquid swirling within. He continued speaking, his eyes now fixed on the gathering. I have already said I will reward you. So, what should I give you other than land? The king's brow furrowed as he pondered, his thoughts drifting towards finding a suitable token of appreciation. In the midst of this thoughtful pause, Aylmer Drazel, the newly made noble of the kingdom, seized the moment to make his own request. He believed the king's generosity extended beyond mere land, and he had a particular desire in mind, one that he hoped would further bolster his knowledge. My king, could I ask for something? Aylmer's voice was measured and respectful as he addressed the king. Tell me if it is reasonable, I will grant it, King Robert responded, his curiosity piqued by Aylmer's request. With determination in his eyes, Aylmer pressed on, outlining his petition. I would like to retain the services of a master blacksmith of Qohor, and I heard there was one in your service. Is it possible for him to work for me exclusively for 2 years? The king considered the request for a few seconds, and after that brief moment of contemplation, King Robert gave his consent. Is that it? He inquired, seeking confirmation from Aylmer. Aylmer nodded firmly. Yes, my king. Okay then, I grant that to you. The king's decision was final, and he turned to his king guards to ascertain the name of the blacksmith in question. Topomot will exclusively work for you, and the crown will pay for 2 years. After that, it will be up to you and him. With this exchange, the atmosphere in the hall remained charged with a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect as the king honored the requests of his loyal vassals. The final day of the grand tourney had arrived, and the atmosphere was filled with anticipation as the archery contest took center stage. Unlike the previous days, this event saw a diverse group of participants, including commoners who had a chance to showcase their skills. Among the knights, however, there lingered a sentiment that archery was an inferior art, often dismissing it as a coward's weapon. Most of them looked down on the weapon, calling it a soldier's weapon. Nevertheless, the archers lined up, ready to prove their mettle. The contest commenced with the target set at a reasonable 40 meters. Succeeding at this distance allowed the archers to progress to the next challenging targets, strategically placed at 60, 80, and 100 meters, each demanding greater precision and skill. As the distance increased to 60 meters, the field narrowed considerably. Among the contestants, 5 had managed to maintain their accuracy, showcasing their prowess in archery. 2 of these skilled archers hailed from noble backgrounds, while the remaining 3 were common soldiers, Fletcher and Angui, representing the common folk, and nobles Balan Swan and Jalaparho. Jalaparho, in particular, stood out as an exiled prince from the Summer Isles. His striking appearance, adorned with a feather cape resplendent in green and scarlet hues, drew the eyes of many. His bow, crafted from the rare golden heart tree, was considered second only to the legendary dragon bone bows. Advancing to the 80-meter target brought a surge of excitement among the participants and the crowd. However, it also marked the end of the journey for Balan Swan and Fletcher Dick, who had displayed exceptional skill but fell just short of advancing further. This left Airmer Drazzle, Angui, and Jalapar as the final contenders, each eager to claim the coveted title. Jalaparho was the first to release an arrow at the 100-meter target, his shot missing the bullseye. Following him, Angui stepped forward, releasing his arrow with the precision that struck the bullseye. The crowd erupted into cheers, acknowledging the incredible display of skill. Airmer, too, demonstrated his mastery by hitting the bullseye, and the audience's excitement soared. Two of the contenders had hit their targets with pinpoint accuracy, setting the stage for an intense showdown. With the competition progressing to the 120-meter target, Airmer decided to inject an element of flair. Turning to Angui, he proposed a friendly wager, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "You are a great archer, Angui," Airmer complimented. "Thank you, my lord, your words honor me greatly," Angui replied humbly. "Shall we make this contest more interesting?" Airmer suggested, a playful grin tugging at his lips. Intrigued, Angui inquired, "What do you have in mind, my lord?" "If I emerge victorious, you shall come and serve me," Airmer proposed, the glint of competition shining in his eyes. With a spirited glint of his own, Angui questioned, "And what if, by chance, I emerge as the victor?" Airmer's confidence remained unwavering as he declared, "That, my friend, is a scenario we need not entertain. But should it occur, I shall bestow upon you all my gold." The crowd, catching wind of their spirited exchange, buzzed with excitement. The prospect of such a wager added an extra layer of suspense to the contest. With the stakes set, Airmer readied himself for the challenge. He picked up 3 arrows, deftly knocking one to the bowstring while holding the others between his fingers. His movements were so swift that it almost appeared as though he had fired a single arrow. In rapid succession, the arrows were released, and the sounds of their impact echoed through the air: thump, thump, crack. 2 of Airmer's arrows found their mark on the bullseye, while the third split an arrow already embedded in the target before striking the bullseye itself. The silence that followed was momentary, giving way to an eruption of cheers and applause from the crowd. Angui, Jalabhar, and Fletcher looked on in awe, their jaws figuratively dropping. Undaunted by Airmer's impressive performance, Angui stepped up to take his shots. However, his speed and accuracy couldn't match Airmer's. He managed to strike the target twice, landing in the outer rings, while the other last shot narrowly missed its mark while nicking the edge of the target. With this triumphant display, Airmer was crowned the archery champion, having emerged victorious in all 3 contests: the joust, the melee, and now the archery. His prowess and achievements were solidifying his status in the north as a formidable figure. Although the path to establishing his holdfast lay ahead, Airmer knew that time was on his side. With patience and strategic planning, he would cultivate the necessary prestige within the north to attract talented individuals to his service. Propaganda, bolstered by his Druid persona, would become a potent tool in creating a hidden network of allies and supporters. As the grand tourney concluded, the various lords began their journeys back to their respective lands. The matter of the Iron Islands had been addressed, with Harlaws chosen as the new Lord of Iron Island and the Sea. Additionally, Theon Greyjoy, Balan's heir, had been entrusted to Lord Stark's care as a hostage. Despite these measures, Airmer remained vigilant, wary of the potential return of Balon Greyjoy's other troublesome brothers Victarion, Aeron, and Euron, who had eluded capture and could pose future threats. Chapter 160. 290 AC. POV Third Person. Unknown underground catacombs. In the heart of a dimly lit, circular chamber, a man draped in immaculate white attire occupied one of the 7 throne-like chairs that encircled a grand, round table made out of shiny black stone. Despite the ancient aura of the room, not a trace of dust marred its surfaces. The walls, fashioned from glossy, obsidian-like stone, bore meticulously carved motifs and intricate ritualistic carvings that adorned their surfaces. The solemnity of the moment was abruptly disrupted as the chamber's doors flung open. In strode 2 women and a man, their voices raised in fervent argument. The man, standing tall with a physique reminiscent of a chiseled statue, boasted skin of the deepest hues of black, reflecting a healthy vitality. Though short, stout, and robust, not a hint of excess fat could be found on his muscular frame. His dark brown armor, noticeably absent of sleeves, showcased the power in his thick, sinewy arms. One of the women, elderly yet commanding, possessed a crown of snow-white hair that did little to diminish her regal and formidable presence. The other woman, a striking figure with a cascade of fiery red hair bound in a lengthy braid that descended to her waist, was clad in vibrant red armor, her toned physique exuding a blend of strength and beauty that was nothing short of remarkable. Taking their seats around the stone table, the man in white inquired of the elderly woman. "Why have you summoned this meeting?" Her response was swift and direct. "Where are the others?" The red-haired woman interjected, her tone laced with scorn. "Do you honestly expect those peculiar beings to grace us with their presence? They are likely preoccupied with their arcane diversions." The elderly woman's tone shifted, her voice tinged with frustration as she revealed a startling revelation as she pointed at the red-haired woman. "Are you aware of what she did? She mercilessly slaughtered all my men to conceal the existence of the Druid." The dark-skinned man, brows furrowing in concern, questioned her actions. "Why would you resort to such measures?" The red-haired woman chimed in, her impatience evident. "Because a profound boredom consumes me. Because of you two," she continued while pointing at the dark-skinned man and the man in white. She turned to the man in white. "You corrupted Azor Aha before I could engage him. After he sacrificed his wife for power, he became nothing more than an empty vessel." She turned to the dark-skinned man, "And you obliterated one of the greatest empires without notifying me. I was eagerly anticipating that war." Her frustration culminated in a forceful blow to the stone table, causing it to shatter momentarily before miraculously mending itself. "Why did I agree to join forces with you all? I did not do so for mere sustenance, I only longed for the vibrant feast I could engage in on the battlefield. Allow me to clarify, should you interfere with him before he attains his full potential, I shall confront you, even to the death. If I am deprived of worthy adversaries, then I shall content myself with dueling you all." She continued smashing her fists on the stone table and threw a temper tantrum like a child. "I am so bored." The elderly woman tried to reason with her. "Why are you acting so recklessly? He may be the new champion of the true god of this realm." Unfazed, the red-haired woman's retort was uncompromising. "Very well, I hope he is. Even if he is the champion, what difference would it make? We require war and chaos. For him to establish his presence necessitates a confrontation with the faithful of the Seven. Is that not what we desire?" The dark-skinned man said. "Even if we refrain from intervening, she, being the closest to Westeros, has already suffered an affront to her servants. Do you honestly believe she would overlook such an affront?" The red-haired woman sneers at him. "Unless the Druid presents himself at her doorstep, she would remain indifferent. She doesn't care about any of them. Should he fail to unify Westeros and beat her, I shall not concern myself with one so feeble." The elderly woman, her tone fraught with exasperation, implored, "Are you advocating for her demise?" The red-haired woman's response was unequivocal. "No, I am conveying my indifference. Do not feign concern for one another, for none of us harbor such sentiments. Our alliance serves the purpose of quelling the indigenous gods whenever we set foot on a new world. I am simply forthright in my declaration that I would remain unmoved should any of you meet your end. I am well aware that you share my sentiments. So, keep your crocodile tears for yourself." The man in white interjected thoughtfully, "What if you die at his hand, too? Are you indifferent to your own demise as well?" "Indeed, I am," she affirmed. "Though I may experience vexation and perhaps unleash devastation upon this planet when I return to my true body, I shall eventually venture elsewhere and commence a new game. Why are you all acting like this is our final destination? This is just a dinner stop with games." The dark-skinned man weighed in, posing a pivotal question: shall we abstain from interfering until he ushers in an era of new order? The man in white, considering the arguments presented, offered a pragmatic perspective. "She does raise valid points. By refraining from intervention, we allow him to sow the seeds of war and chaos, a circumstance that would serve our interests until the time when he establishes order. Then it warrants for our involvement." A decision was reached. The red-haired woman, with a touch of nostalgia in her voice, recalled a bygone era, lamenting, "I yearn for the age of heroes, a time when powerful beings roamed freely. Each day was marked by arduous struggles and epic battles. I long for another grand confrontation and am resolved to achieve it. Allow me to be unequivocal, if any of you intend to send your servants to Westeros, consider the consequences, for I have indulged in this abundance dinner long enough, and I need not strip every morsel from its bones. All I desire is glorious battles to come, nothing else." The red-haired woman, reflecting on her past conquests, revealed a deep-seated yearning for battle. "I miss the Dawn Emperor," she mused. "They say you never forget your first." It holds true. I still recall the day I stood before his lifeless body. While caressing a prominent scar that ran through her neck to chest tenderly, she continued. Perhaps I should have savored that moment more, for he was the sole human to offer me such a grand gift. A fond smile graced her lips as she recollected, my blood still boils at the memory of that battle. None of his descendants ever matched his might. With each passing generation, they grew weaker. It took us millennia, but with the assistance of our dear sister, we corrupted that envious weakling and brought an end to their dynasty. Mortals, in their ignorance, believe they emerged victorious. With the grand tourney of words concluded, those beings departed the chamber, their intentions clear. As they ventured into the realm of men, they would continue to shape events from the shadows, orchestrating chaos and conflict until the time was ripe for their intervention.
Thanks for listening.